I'm live. Hey, all. Rob should be joining us here shortly. Don't know how many people are going to be tuning in today, but I will be repeating this over and over again. This is spoiler. We are talking about Picard season 3, the first 5 episodes. So if you haven't watched them, that's too bad. So you should probably go watch them. I have plenty of notes right here. And there's Rob coming in.
Hi, everybody.
Hey, let me turn my volume down here. All right. So it's just the two of us so far. I have been apparently this is really hard to come by.
Oh.
As I have been perusing, trying to look for some information, and they're like, "Oh, well, you could probably find it in this thing," and like, but they're so hard to come by. It's like, no, I bought mine like the day it came out.
Yeah,
like that's how old I was.
It's not hard for me. I found it right off the bat.
Yeah. So, what I'm specifically looking for is the length of an enterprise. It doesn't matter if it's D or the original, like in meters. So like I went to here, like here, this says 947 feet. But basically what I'm trying to, I was looking into trying to figure out the size of the Titan A compared to other ships that we are aware of. Just because there's just like, I don't know, I just kind of got into, because, well, here, I'll share with this window. This. Okay. So this is the original Titan.
Right.
Okay. That is Riker's Titan.
Right.
And this is the Titan that we know now. So, and it gives the length. Okay. So is this Titan, which is registered at, what is it? Says the Shangri-La class.
Shangri-La class, yeah.
Like, is it the size of an original Enterprise, or Kirk's Enterprise,
right?
Or is it a little bit smaller? I don't know. For the life of me, I can't find it. I can't find. I can't find any of that information. Just a basic. Yeah. So. And the reason I kind of went down this path is because of just size continuity. And this also, and I know we have one viewer. I don't know who it is. Please put it in the comments. I can actually see, let's see. If I come over here, somebody is watching on Facebook. So, but if we, let's see, share window. Nope, wrong one. So I don't know if you've seen this picture, Rob.
Ooh.
Okay. So this picture came up as as an explanation. Oh, Rob, Lynn.
Hey, Aunt Lynn.
Yeah. So
my aunt, real quick, my aunt is the person that got me into Star Trek as a kid. So whole family's Trekkies. So gotta give props where props is due.
Yeah. So my big thing is them calling it a refit.
Yeah.
Refit. And so this picture popped up, and I don't know who it's by, but it is supported by those in charge.
Right on.
As a concept art of the building of the Titan A and how they used parts from the Titan to build the Titan A. And it the thread that I came upon basically was based out of, okay, well, the shipyards on Mars were destroyed.
Yeah.
And they can't just use, and they have like replicators for this and replicators for that, but a lot of the stuff was destroyed. So what are they going to do? They're going to reuse old stuff.
Right.
And so they're calling it a quote unquote refit, but it is not a refit.
Right.
Like in the show, it's a refit. But the bigger ups are like, it's kind of a refit. Makes sense. Like when they built the Enterprise CVN 65, they used parts from CV6.
Right.
Not a lot of parts, but there's some port windows that they moved over. And I only know this because a teacher in high school allowed me to do a report on the Enterprise, and so I did a whole deep dive. So it's like, okay, but see, this CVN 65 was not a refit,
right?
So even though they use parts, oh wow, okay. So here's according to Metalis, Riker's Luna class USS Titan was a damaged and retired, and some of its systems were placed onto the new Titan A. However, the Titan A wasn't built as a Luna class. Instead, known as the Neo Constitution class or Constitution 3 class starship. Vitalis explains that fighting the Borg factored into the design of starships like the Sovereign class, USS Enterprise E, but now that the Borg were no longer considered a threat, Starfleet design looked backward to the
link to the article.
Oh, there's the article. Okay. So yeah, but here's the thing is that, like, Uber geeks, like if people are just watching it, it's like, well, it's a refit. Like the Enterprise original Constitution class to the movie Enterprise, that is a refit. And originally, and so that was a big thing for me.
Yeah.
But I'm also trying to get like a size wise, because like they're using essentially the front portion looks exactly like a Constitution class starship, height wise and everything. Like the windows are the same, everything. So if it is bigger than a Constitution class ship, like height wise and lengthwise, then the windows are wrong. And I know I'm nitpicking, but like, I don't know.
So here's your answer to the quick Google search. So Kirk's Enterprise was 288 meters.
Okay.
And Enterprise D was 642.
Okay. So if we, let's see. So if we go to, so we'll bring up that other one. So if we bring this back up, so basically the Titan class or the Shangri-La class which looks just like a Neo refit. Like, yeah, they've got the same design, it's just bigger.
Yep.
Which I don't get. Why do they go backwards? They just made it bigger. So I don't understand the logic in that design, but it is what it is, So basically the Shangri-La class is a little bit longer than the Constitution class, but the Titan or the Constitution class 3 is shorter than the Galaxy class.
Yep.
So okay, here's what it is. Yeah. So anyway, So I went down that rabbit hole. Oh, and I also went down a rabbit hole of time frame, like dates too. So, oh, and just something to point up. I can't remember what episode it was. I think it was episode 2. That piece of the shuttle that says Savick on it as it was floating away. Apparently, I read somewhere that Savick was one of the captains of the original Titan.
Yep, I read that too. That there in theory would be a Riker shuttlecraft as well, since they named the shuttlecrafts after their former captains.
Mm-hmm. So maybe we'll see that in a future episode,
or the spinoff.
Yeah. Okay.
Which
so your aunt has been posting a bunch of stuff. So, the a link to what culture. The start. So Trek culture, they're like, I really like their episodes. But yeah, she's just commenting along the ships after the Borg were encountered were designed specifically to fight the Borg. Yep. Yes. And I guess that means that we'll get different ships per enemy.
That's true.
Potentially. That's right. Rob didn't know that. Maybe there will be spinoffs, many spinoffs. I'm hoping. So anyway,
there's some lines that I wrote down in my notes from rewatching that when we get to those points, I'll call them out.
Yeah.
But I'm gonna step away real quick because too much noise out here. I'm having a hard time hearing you.
Yeah.
So with also being partially deaf, so I'll be right back. I'm gonna go grab my headphones so I can actually hear what the hell's going on.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. All right. Got to get my notes together. So, and that's episode 3, episode 1 and 2, episode 4 and 5. I have notes. All right. So one of my things, and we'll give Rob a little bit of time to come back. Is the time frame, which, watching episode 1, I think after talking with Rob, you're on Mountain Time and thought I might have missed y'all's discussion. Nope, you are right on time. We are just starting. So, but one of the big things that Rob and I have been talking about as each episode has come out, specifically, is the time frame. Like episode 1 and 2, and we could probably talk about 1 and 2 as just one episode, because even rewatching them this morning, I was, and it's so funny because I'm watching it with a different perspective because I've already, we've seen the 5 episodes. The first episode I was not blown away with. I was like,
no,
really? I just yeah. So, and then and I got a very much a Wrath of Khan vibe. Just from the whole thing, with Vedek's conversation, the nebula, and I don't know a lot about Metalis, Terry Metalis. I know that he started on Voyager, I guess, and he kind of made his way up the ranks. He's a huge Star Trek fan. He's been part of Star Trek, and he is a Star Trek fan, which I was like, okay, well, and I like as a fan, I like some of the Easter eggs, but as opposed to Lower Decks, I watched Lower Decks for Easter eggs. To me, it's a cartoon. It's fun. I love how it is kind of fitting in as part of canon, but I watch it for the Easter eggs. When we're watching a real show, though, I don't mind Easter eggs, but they have to make sense.
Right.
Don't put them there just because, ooh, we put this in the background, or ooh, this is here just because, for the fans. With it starting in the 25th century, that's great. I get why, the whole 250th anniversary of Frontier Day. I get all that, but the time, like did Picard season 2 not ever happen?
So that's the thing that I know you and I've had a lot of conversations about.
Yeah.
Where we've got the Taco Bell incident, right? We've got the giant burning butthole in space.
Right.
We end on this cliffhanger where we have the new Borg Queen. We have this potential alliance between the Borg and the Federation to battle against this pending, amazing, destructive event that no one knows what's happening. And hey, we're going to get back to that in a minute. We're going to go off to, it's completely dismissed, completely dropped and ignored. And that's something that, from that standpoint, and you and I have talked about it a lot, that each season is in essence its own episode. It has its own arc, start to finish.
One big 10-part episode.
Right. And the downside is when you end on what's potential to be a 2-parter and you don't pick back up. And you even, unless things will change, which it's possible, right?
Right.
But at the moment, there is no mention of it. There's no talk about it. There's nothing to do with it. There's just, the only thing is Shaw is, anti-Borg, and they're out there, and we know they're out there, and, okay, got it. So there's some PTSD. There's some things that we'll talk about as we go through the episodes, with that really kind of helped shape him, which is really cool character development. But we're not addressing the giant burning hole in space that we left with. We're not talking about the Borg. And how, we've kind of recreated who they are now. It's especially going into this first episode, or the first episode, it was concerning because it's like, it's one of the first times we in Trek, we literally just went, yeah, we know, but we don't care. And it didn't set it off. You and I talked for like 2.5 hours after that episode. Like, dude, what? But how? We had this, and we're so excited to see what they're going to do, and they did nothing. And Terry's coming out here going like, yeah, listen, guys, we're not doing anything with that. That has nothing to do with anything. But that might be a swerve, which again we'll get into later as the episodes go through, because I think there's several different themes that pop up a lot, and I feel like all of this could end up becoming interconnected. It's potential. When we start talking about like what we think is going to happen, I'll dive into that a little bit more. But but yeah, I agree. First episode kind of lackluster comparative, especially when both of us were seeing people coming out. There were huge detractors going, this seasons 1 and 2 sucked. Season 3 is amazing, because they got to see the whole thing. Right. Where we didn't. Obviously, we're seeing episode by episode. So
yeah, and I remember talking about wanting to, like, wishing that they had dropped episode 1 and 2 at the same time, just like Disney had done it, with some of their stuff, just so. Because, after the first episode, I was just like, it's good, but it wasn't like, hey, I'm going to capture you and pull you in and give you something interesting. It's like, I just didn't have it there. And like with the time frame, it's supposed to be, Terry Metalysis says it's supposed to be 2401. Okay. And if we look at season 2, season 2 did take place over a week or so in the past, but it only took place over a day or so in the present.
Right.
But when exactly did that take place? I didn't go back to see if they gave us a whatchamacallit, or a star date.
Star date. Yeah. I don't remember them doing that.
Yeah. But, Picard specifically says to the Fox Mulder, clone, he says, I come from what you would know as the 25th century.
Right.
And which in reality, like we just had this talk the other day, in reality is the first year, which would be 2401. It was established like all over the internet and from the upper ups. It happens in 2401. Yet this season 3 also happens in 2401. So when and with we don't know how long 7 has been on the Titan.
Nope.
she, at the end of the episode, she did get a field commission, a field commission from Picard. So did she automatically, did they go, okay, you're a commander, and then, for whatever reason, Shaw is like, yeah, I want her as my first officer.
Or he
It's
didn't
like,
have a choice.
or potentially, yes.
Which would create some of that animosity that you have between the two characters.
Right. Well, he could have, because in episode 1, when they talk, he says he's had, because this is one of the things that I was like, it's like, okay, well, if this ship is a refit,
right, then
why did he go through, like, why did he purge all the stuff from Riker?
Right.
Or, because I was like, wait a minute, shouldn't it be a new system? But if I listen carefully, Lynn, yeah, my husband stopped watching in season 2, dismayed by season 1. I had to convince him to give it a shot, give it a go for season 3. Much better. Yeah, overall, season 3 is much better.
Absolutely.
Even though that, the haters out there didn't like season 2, Rob and I, we really enjoyed season 2.
Yeah.
Like it was, I think there were some things that I was like, but overall it was a really good season, and it was much better than season 1.
Yeah.
But so when they're having dinner, what does he say? He says
5 years. 5 years.
He says I've been on. I've had this ship for 5 years and 6 missions.
36.
Did you say 36 missions?
Yeah, because I wrote the quote down because that was part of my whole Shaw is a dick. I like him. So the line was, I have kept this train running for 5 years, 36 missions. You don't get to where you're told to go by standing in front of it, then moving the track.
Oh, okay. So I thought he said 6 missions. 36 missions makes total sense. So and so if he took over the Luna class, and then he was told to come in for a refit and be like, okay, we're going to move everything over, and then got a new first officer in that first 6 months. So because what did we in episode 5, we find out that Frontier Day is just days away, because we don't know we know it's coming up, we just don't know how close it is, but it is days away. So Frontier Day, we go to, is April 16th, because that's when April 16th, 2151 is the first mission of NX-01. And so 250 years from there is 2401. So we know that it's April of 2401. So and this is, and I think we talked about this yesterday. Did Picard season 2 happen at the end of, or sometime in 2400? And when Picard tells the Mulder wannabe that said, and he says, I come from the 25th century, was that just, hey, it's 2400?
Right. Like
most of the world thought that the year 2000 was the new millennium, and it's not. It was 2001. So that could have been that, and that would be totally logical to have like a year and a couple months, or even a year between both points, to have all that take place.
Well, it's the ever popular 6 months before my birthday, I start saying I'm that age. It's just easier to go, how old are you? I'm 45. I'm 40. I'm 40. You know what? So you're rounding up, right? I'll be 44 in June. So people ask me now, I'm 44.
Right.
I have to keep it in my head.
And instead of explaining, well, it's the latter half of the 24th century.
Right.
We're
getting close to
century.
Right. It's just round it off. His mind's already gonna be blown as it is.
Yeah.
Just let it happen.
So there was some of the notes that I took this morning are all based. Some of them are based off of information that we find out later. Okay. So, and one of the things, so like, we had a talk about originally, it's like, why was Beverly, because it opens up and we've got the captain's log from
Yep.
23996.2, and that's specifically Best of Both Worlds Part
Yep.
1. I think Best of Both Worlds Part 1 Act 3. And it opens up and they're in the nebula, and that's the captain's log that opens up. So one of my was like, well, maybe are the board going to take part in this? Oh, and we have more people on board. Please say hi. And of course somebody just disappears, but that's okay. So we are talking about Picard, the first 5 episodes. Just if you don't want spoilers, watch this later. Anyway, so we had talked about that, but I now think that she was listening to those logs to what did Picard do to hide himself from the Borg in a nebula,
right,
and try and take on those same tactics.
Well, and there's a lot of those
it's
similarities.
like one of those it's one of those Easter eggs,
right,
that makes sense to the story.
Right.
So
and that's like I was telling you earlier, right? So let's focus a little bit on episode 1, right?
Mm-hmm.
Go to my notes. So we open up, and the first thing you hear, because I was telling you about my theories, and I've proved myself right in a lot of ways. Very proud of myself. So we start off with the song "I Don't Want to Set the World on Fire."
Okay.
So when we first did this back weeks and weeks ago on your Friday show, I was like, oh, yeah, this guy must be a Fallout fan because that song is played in Fallout 4 and the video game and the trailers and everything. But now that I've seen the first 5 episodes and I caught it again, I went, well, wait a minute. There's a lot of these musical cues. Something. There's a thread here.
Right.
So the lyrics to the song that you hear, I don't want to set the world on fire. I just want to start a flame in your heart. In my heart, I have but one desire, and that one is you. No other will do. Okay. So I'm listening to it. I'm like, oh my God, this is kind of that. We know Beverly and Jean-Luc, they're going to have that moment. They're going to reconnect. This is kind of that longing for him. Oh, there's his audiobook, or his captain's log. So all this stuff is playing. I'm like, there's this unrequited love. Like I miss him, but and I like that there was a bunch of her memorabilia that I didn't take it as there's blatant Easter eggs, but it wasn't like, it was more just saying, hey, this is her personal space kind of thing. So you had like the acting masks from with throwback to the Nth Degree with her and Barkley doing the stage play. You had orchids from Cause and Effect. You had Jack Crusher's case of all of his personal belongings from the family episode.
Right.
There was the old Enterprise D computer console she's listening to the logs on. So that was cool. And I like that because it's kind of, everything's kind of scrapped together. This ship is hers. Like there is no question through that visual. Right. But I agree. I think there's a lot of, and as we kind of go episode to episode, and I'll pull out some of these musical cues. Several of them are in this episode, but as we start pulling it out, I'll show you how I kind of started pulling them together from the fact that we've seen the first half, and I can go, oh my God, look. But no, like I even though this wasn't the greatest episode, I liked the way it started because it started off very Rathacon, started off very pulls you in, pump action, plasma rifle, phaser, whatever you want to call it. That was the weirdest thing I've ever seen, but it's so cool.
Right. I mean, it really, like, I wrote down Dr. Beverly is a badass.
Yes. You know what?
We talked about that.
Beverly proving she's a badass, defeating unknown alien intruders.
Right.
She is a beast. She's an amazing actress, but the character is awesome. And I like the fact that they have made her even stronger in character and not backtracked any or kind of left her stagnant to be saved. Right. She saves herself, I thought that was really cool. But again, kind of what we talked about when the first episode premiered, and I still felt it watching in hindsight, lots of threads get thrown out in this episode. Some of them have payoff, and there's still a lot of questions out there that something tells me we're just not going to get answers to.
Yeah.
Who are these alien? What is this alien race?
Right. And it might just end up being the minions of Vadic.
Right.
or it could be something more.
Could be.
Yeah. So
It could be. But no, I like that. They're automatic pulse rifles. I thought that was cool too.
mhm.
You know, I like to see this new tech. There was a tweet that Dr. Crusher put on her Twitter account talking about people were talking about the pump action, and she goes, "Yeah, I actually broke it. I think I sent it to you when I saw it.
Yeah.
She broke the prop because she was so into the scene. She jacked it and broke it, and she's like, I went through 2 of these before we finally got the full scene." And I'm like,
Yeah.
oh. So in my brain, I'm like, oh, that must be the new phaser Nerf guns that are coming out, and then you can pump it up and whoops. So that was cool.
Which were supposed to come out last November, but they're not actually coming out until this coming December. Which I know this because
you pre-ordered it.
I have some on pre-order. Yeah. So,
but no, I liked it. I think they did a really good job setting up a really strong sense of suspense.
mhm.
I liked that thread because, and now obviously we have the answer to it, but oh my God, why are these guys tracking her? Why are they hunting her down? Why is it just her and someone you don't really see? You just hear him yelling in the background. What's going on?
Right.
You know, they did a really good job with that. Then they kind of dropped the ball a little, but
yeah. Well, you know, and then of course, you know, she sends her message off to Picard. We get to see Laris. Like, I was so excited. Like, yes, you know, Laris stayed, and then they have the fireside chat, and we know that we may never see Laris again.
Yeah.
Or he might end up. It might end up like the end of season 3.
Right.
In episode 10 might be you get the Batman the Dark Knight Returns ending where he's sitting in a tea house or in a bar with her at the very end.
I'm really hoping for that because they set that up so well where it's like, I'll be on this planet at this bar every day at sunset. So I'd like to see that shot where she's at that bar looking out at the sunset, and you just see him walk into the scene and maybe says Laris, or, you know, doesn't have to say anything.
He doesn't even, he can just go black.
Right. And you're like, oh, happy ending. Yay.
Yeah.
You know, but it's
so,
we'll see.
But when they talk, even before that, and he talks about, he says, oh yeah, you know, I'm totally going to go with you. But he talks about, he goes, oh, I think I'll write my memoirs.
Yeah.
But let's fast forward to episode 4 when he's talking to the cadets 5 years in the past, and one of them actually says, no, shoot, did I even write it down? Basically, he was like, oh, you wrote in your book.
Right.
Isn't that a memoir? Or is he doing volume 2? Like
maybe volume 2. I caught that today too, because I'm like, wait a minute. Okay, so you know, who knows? But there was a really cool line that Laris had when he was talking about that, and I pulled it out because it hit me in a different way after watching it. The first time it hit me one way, watching all 5 episodes, it hit me something different.
Right.
Which was, Jean-Luc, you don't have to prove to me how ready you are for this, how in the present you are. The past matters, and that's okay. So that's also kind of setting up, now that I've seen all this stuff, that's kind of set up that I know you're not going to show up there. I know this is goodbye. It's okay.
Yeah.
It had a very strong sense of finality now. Then it felt more like, I get it. Do what you got to do. It's okay. I understand. Go save the galaxy. But now that we've kind of had the reconnection, we understand Jack's his son. You see there is something kind of rekindled with him and Beverly. You see, of course, the heartbreak of Lauren. We'll talk about that later. You see all this and go, yes, she may be one of the loves of his life, but Beverly will always be the love of his life.
Yeah.
So if he has a choice, do you go with the mother of your child, or do you go with the person that you think you love or are in love with the idea of now?
Right.
Where do you go? So I'm interested to see how that plays out in the next couple of episodes.
Absolutely. That's a really good point. That's a really good point.
And then just to tie back into the music thing, so when we cut over to Chateau Picard, the track playing is "I Can't Stop Crying" by Will Grove White. It is, but honey, now it seems that our love affair is through. I can't stop praying you'll come back home. Can't understand why you left me all alone.
Damn.
See how I was telling you this stuff kind of ties back? There's another one that I have to give, and I told you I ended up watching this with subtitles this time, just we had a bunch of stuff going on in the house and kids watching their crap, and I couldn't hear anything, so I put the subtitles on. And there's another one that I found later on that all of a sudden so much has made sense, and that's what solidified to me that this music that they're putting in, not in every episode, 4 and 5 didn't have any, but in 1, 2, and 3, this is really laying out a lot of really cool groundwork. And talk about an Easter egg. This is a 100% put out there for you, but you're going to miss it because why would you think about what music they're playing? Why would you listen to the lyrics? You wouldn't. So yet again, that sign of either with him and Laura's ending, or he is also still lamenting Beverly,
right?
Or 1,000 other people.
Yeah. No, that's so I mean, when it really comes to purposeful music selection, they've so far, dude, and like I haven't done a lot of reading online, but you said, you know, this is something that they're not talking about.
I even looked. The only thing that I saw that came up was a list of all the songs. And I was like, okay, but no one's talking about anything beyond that. They're like, oh, if you like the soundtrack, here's the songs on Spotify.
Yeah.
But watching it and going, nah, something's about this. Hold on. Cause this is, you know, first I'm like, oh, it's very stylistic because as we find out, he makes a mixtape for her instead in lieu of roses and wine, he makes a mixtape. And I'm like, that's awesome. Like that's a true romantic right there. Right.
But it's also a very 80s thing.
Yes.
Which the Next Generation came out in the 80s.
In the 80s.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was, let's call it, it was an 80s, 90s thing. And that's the length of the show. So it's the same, like I made plenty of mixtapes for girls I was dating or wanted to date. So, you know, both in the 80s and 90s. So like, it's definitely there, which I thought was really, really sweet. But you know, there was this makes sense now, but when you and I first talked about episode 1, I remember saying like the guy in the bar that drops the Enterprise D, you know, the fat one, drops that in the drink, and because you see his profile for a minute, and he kind of follows him, drops it in the drink. It's like, well, who is this guy? And we go over, we got the shifty ensign that we now know he was a changeling. We understand why. But at the time, it's like, there's got to be something with these guys. Something's up. Now it makes more sense that either the guy in the bar was Star Trek intelligence or Starfleet intelligence. Potentially, or a changeling, or both.
Yeah.
And then you've got obviously the ensign being the changeling, because we know he was on board well before anything happened with Jack Crusher.
Right.
So that was kind of cool to kind of see that payoff come to fruition. And like you said, I'm looking at my notes. I've got like 6 pages. I'm sorry.
Well, I just had this. That's, you know, one episode. Yeah. Damn.
I'll be honest. I wrote a lot of quotes down, things that popped from, again, having seen all the episodes, now going back and rewatching, things that hit, because I felt like there was a lot of foreshadowing. I know you and I talked about that after episode 1 and 2.
Yeah.
Now I'm seeing these lines and hearing them. I'm going, oh my God. Yeah, this foreshadows this. Holy shit. This ties back to this. There was, I think it was episode, it's in my notes. I think it was episode 5.
Yeah.
No, episode 3. Jonathan Frakes says to Picard, you'd burn the world to save them, talking about his family.
Yeah.
Shaw had another one like that in episode 4. Um, trying to find it here in my notes, but another one about he was when he's going off on Picard about Wolf 359 and the Borg and everything. One of the things he said is he's talking about he was going and he was setting the world on fire. Again, lyrical callback.
4.
Right. So lyrical callback to what's going on in Picard's heart. I don't want to set the world on fire. I just want to start a flame in your heart. So there's lots of conversations about pride versus patience. Yes. So it's interesting because the series so far, where episode 1 was reintroduction to Admiral Picard.
Yeah.
2 was how do we fix something that kind of got squirreled up. More building the troops and Picard. This has really become a deconstruction of Picard, which I really like. There was a beautiful shot later on. I think it was episode 3, where right after Riker had yelled at Picard to get off the bridge. You've killed us all. So we go. Maybe it's episode 4. So we start open the episode. You have the previously on Star Trek Picard. That's the last thing you see. Then you have Picard standing in the window in a beautiful shot, looking out at the nebula with the asteroids, and as it pushes in, it cuts to watching the Titan tumble down into the nebula, and it cuts back to him again, and it's slowly pulling out. For the film major in me, that is showing his fall internally. He is losing himself to despair because it offsets what they talked about with the cadets of, even in an unwinnable situation, there's always hope when you're surrounded by your crew and blah, 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 blah. Not now. You are in a, as the title of the episode calls it, no-win situation. You're in a no-win situation. You're ready to die. You've given up. You've lost everything. It's all your fault. It's all, so he's in this very uncharacteristic depressive state, but he's not vocalizing it. But there's a great way that they show that through that opening sequence, which I some of my hands down some of my favorite directorial work on Star Trek, and that was a Jonathan Frakes episode. So
yeah, absolutely.
Hats off to the man. Random episode 1 question, because I know neither of us have an answer. Why the hell is Geordi LaForge running a museum? Am I the only one that's like, that's? I mean, I know I'm not, because you and I've talked about it, but it's like, really?
Okay, so. And this is, I remember watching the end titles, because the end titles are kind of the beginning titles.
Correct.
Okay. And then they actually have the credits. So we have lots of different shots. You have this one scene where it has, it shows the Constitution Class A. It shows an original, I can't remember what ship class it was, but it's like from the original series. They never had it, but it is in it's in the the Starfleet technical manual. But it's almost, I would say he might not be running the museum. He might be running the starship portion.
Okay.
Like he could be on the board, and that's like his specialty is that. And because he's an engineer and starships need to be kept up, that could be part of.
Right. Which would make sense when Picard's talking about giving him the Enterprise D that used to be in the ready room, or his captain's room. Like, hey, give it to Geordi. He'll appreciate it because, he's running the museum.
Yeah.
Geordi should be teaching this shit, not running a museum. But then again, maybe he retired from teaching. Maybe he, raise a family. I need a job that allows me to be home more. Yeah. I oversee, to your point, I oversee the ships in the museum, which would be kind of cool to watch them steal yet another ship from another museum. I don't know. There's so much that they tie stuff in. And I love the constant throwbacks to TOS, whether it's been Wrath of Khan, Search for Spock, all the throwbacks visually, auditorily, just absolutely brilliant.
One of the screenshots that comes up is a Constellation class ship.
Mhm.
And I had to pause it. I actually thought it said 1138, but it's actually 1038. NCC 1038. It's the USS Constance, which was the ship that Shaw was on, and it actually gives the star date of its destruction, or its of 44002.3, which is the same star date of Wolf 359,
right.
and the star date that Shaw spews out in episode 4.
Which that, and I know I didn't want to really skip around too much. I was thinking we'd go episode to episode, but we have ADD, nerd ADD. It happens. That whole painkiller induced PTSD fueled speech that Shaw gave, absolutely brilliant. And as much as I keep telling you, like he has gotten to be that guy that I love to hate and I hate to love, but I love him. I like, this is a captain that is a great
character.
He is. He's the antithesis of Jean-Luc Picard. He is what did he say? Forgive me. At some point, asshole. Damn it, I wrote it down. Asshole got switched for charm, or got confused with charm, or
yes.
I wrote it down.
I didn't write down that quote, but yes.
Let's see. Hold on, because I want to get it right. Didn't I write it down? Oh, I guess I didn't write it. Oh, there it goes. Forgive me. At some point, asshole became a substitute for charm.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
love that.
But with all that he's gone through, when you start hearing that he basically was randomly selected by a lieutenant, we got 10 people we can get on there. You. Why me? I'm just a grease monkey from Chicago. He's got survivor's guilt. He's got dipshit. Yeah, dipshit grease monkey from Chicago. So, he has survivor's guilt. He has PTSD. Yes. He has all this stuff that, the only other character that really dove into it to a degree was Cisco, when he dealt with Picard, and he had that animosity. And so I like the fact that this is carrying on that, for lack of a better term, tradition, being like, yeah, there are people that forgave him, understood it, and there are other people who are like, no, I lost everything because of you, the most dangerous Borg in history, because he was the only one to given a name of Locutus of Borg. I mean, just the way he said that with vitriol and just spit it out. It's like,
now, let's go to season 2, where Vedic is saying, "Oh, I know who you are. I know who you are. I know who you are."
Episode 2. Episode 2.
Season 2.
You did.
Yeah.
I was like, she wasn't in season 2.
Yeah. Where episode 2.
Yeah.
Where she's like, "Oh, yeah, you're Liam Shaw, and according to your," and I did write this down. According to your current psychological profile, it looks like you're functional.
Yes.
And you're taking this well.
Yes.
And then we have the scene in episode 4 where you're like, yes,
it makes sense now. Yeah. That's why I think that, as much as I understand that there's the constant debate between streaming. Do you do streaming every episode, or the full series at one go and you binge watch it? Do you do it like a episodic weekly episode release? I get the debate. This is one of those situations where I am truly torn between the two. I feel like if we saw this thing in its entirety, this would be a whole different conversation. But I love the fact that we are getting all these little threads they throw out there that I complained after episode 1, going, too many threads. You're never going to connect them all. Oh, wait, we're connecting them. And there's threads that you didn't know about that we're connecting.
And even that line, like I've seen episode 2 probably 4 or 5 times. Watching it this morning, that was the first time I caught that line. I was like, wait a minute. That makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
That makes total sense now. Yeah. So,
and I think one of the things that backtracking just a step for Shaw, one of the lines I wrote down, because to me, I giggled later on when he's humming in the turbo lift. Yeah. When they ask him like, oh, we're we're gonna take a slight detour. Wouldn't it be great to be the captain that, you know, went out here and did this and did that with the former captain? No. I love you. I do. I love reading about all your wildly exciting and equally irresponsible adventures, but I have orders that came down from actual officers whose pay grade are far above all of ours. So request denied.
Yeah.
Like that moment, you know, him eating before, I wrote it down. Hold on. Oh, did we, are we late? And he responded, no, your reputation preceded you into the room, so I started early. It's like, oh, shit. You're an asshole. I like it because you're just not like, I didn't care. You're like, oh, no. Your reputations preceded you into the room. Your egos are so large, they're filling up the ship. So you were already here. Didn't matter if you were physically here or not. You're here. So I started without you. God, he is such a, he is an asshole, but I love it. I really, really do. They've done a great job writing him because, again, he is not a Starfleet captain as we have been shown through movies, TV, everything. He is not your typical captain. And I think that's what helps him resonate. Yeah. Especially when you're the younger captain between Admiral Picard and should be Admiral Riker, but he's still a captain for multiple reasons. We'll find out another day. You know, you've got two guys that are legends. And here's this guy that's like, I just don't fucking care. It's a great plot, a great way they played it out.
Yeah. And like going into with episode, just like when we look at episode 1 and 2, we've talked about this, very Wrath of Khan like.
Yes.
I think I even made it like not knowing really Vedek's role, like what her true role is. It's like, okay, is she going to be the Khan? Or is she going to be the General Chang?
Right.
Because she
plays it both ways. And it's the actor who played Chang, it's his daughter, but she plays this so brilliantly. And watching it now, you know, for the third, fourth time for some of these episodes, watching her sitting there with her cigarello and her scars and her I don't care, I know more than you do attitude. It very Joker-like, very Khan with Kang. I mean, just everything comes to a beautiful head with that character as well. And it's like, you are going to be one of those characters, the way you portrayed it as an actor.
Yeah.
You are going to be bringing this character into the Star Trek mythos that will be remembered in ad nauseum, because this is not a character that you're going to forget. Even if we never see her again at this point, that impact has been made by her, by how she portrayed this character. You know, even when she does oh my God, she's a changeling. She does that communication, which is weird, with the unnamed head, where it's like, go after them. You know, what was the line? Obtain the
asset.
Obtain the asset at all costs.
Episode 4. Jack is an asset.
Yes. Yep. Yeah. Because I wrote it down too, but it was. Got to find it when I was in the episode. But yeah, that whole. It's just like, no, it's a suicide mission. I don't care. You guys are expendable, and you see that look like. Okay.
All right.
Drop the nebula device or the portal device, go after him, you know.
Yeah.
And that was I again, I will talk about that portal device here in a second, because that was a moment. Oh, there it is. Obtain and deliver the asset. All else is expendable. Your ship, your people, you. And it's like, oh, okay. Again, different than, because we know this is a changeling terrorist organization, different than the changelings were, where it's like, no. Changelings won't kill other changelings. Like, you can't do that. We're all part of the same link. We have to be together. No, unified thought. We are Legion kind of thing, but we are all equally important in the Great Link. This is completely different. This is very much a top-down leadership.
Yeah.
But I'm going to jump back to episode 1 for a second. One of the other tracks. This was when Picard and Riker got onto the Mariposa.
Okay.
It's I Can't Stop Crying, which is the same. It was the same track that he was listening to in Chateau Picard, just different verse. I can't stop crying over you, baby girl. I can't think of smiling. Now I'm sad and blue. You're always in my dreams, but honey, now it seems that our love affair is through. I can't stop crying over you. Can't think of smiling. My heart belongs to you. So yet again, now we're on Beverly's ship. Same track is playing. We understand now why it's the mixtape he made. He's listening to his version, but you see both their hearts. It again, and I'll explain, and I'll point at some other ones later. But both them longing for the other, but afraid to be together for a multitude of different reasons. As she pointed out when she was talking, they had that great, powerful scene of, why did you never tell me? Well, I was going to tell you, but then this happened. I was 9 months, and then after that happened, this happened. Well, and then after that happened, this and this and this. You are Jean-Luc Picard. You will always have a bullseye on your, or a target on your back, and I didn't want your son to have one too. And it's like, and you just watch him like he's got nothing. There's no argument.
Because she says, I knew I could protect my son. I didn't know if I could protect yours.
Yeah. I thought that was like,
damn.
Because, it's to me, it was that verbal slugfest, right? He's throwing his jabs. She's throwing her jabs. When he was said, how dare you use my fears and what I confided in you against me to keep him out of my life. And it's like, ooh, she rocked back a little bit. Oh, no. Then she came back in swinging, double jab and a cross. And Picard went out when she laid it on him. And
and that was a great conversation that they had.
Yes.
That was like, this is the conversation that they needed to have. And
yes,
as us, as fans needed to see. Yeah.
And what I will say for the whole thing, and then we can shift into episode 2 or whatever, but the whole thing for all 5 episodes, Beverly and Riker, even Shaw at times, but Beverly and Riker primarily, they have several scenes. When you've got someone like Sir Patrick Stewart, who has been acting since he was 12, 13, something like that, who is Shakespearean trained, brilliant actor, to watch them quite literally steal the scene from him or overpower him in a scene like that just goes to show the quality of acting and casting that they did, which in the 80s and 90s were like, it's cool. It's Riker, pressure, whatever, but now to see how they've really honed their own craft and they can stand in a room where it's just the two of them and absolutely own that scene and literally cast him in the shadows while he's just this is their moment, and
it also goes to show the writing too.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. We do have people coming in and on. If you're watching, please say hi. If you want to participate, put it in the comment. We'll talk about it. We have been kind of jumping back around. We were a little bit in episode 3. I think we're finished with episode 1 for the most part.
Yeah,
we've talked episode 2 here and there. I don't have a lot of notes for episode 2.
So
the piece of shuttle, we already mentioned the piece of shuttle with Saavik on it, and like I didn't know that Saavik was the captain of the Titan originally, but apparently that's the lore that they've come up with, and that's kind of cool that that she got back into Starfleet after having her non-baby by Spock.
Right.
I don't consider that lore at all.
No.
Yeah.
Now I will say, and I'm the same way. I didn't have a lot of notes for episode 2. A couple ones that I did have. So when the Fennec Rangers board the ship.
Yes.
This is another thing that I turned the subtitles on for, because they kept saying something when they're contact the and I'm like, what did he say? Back it up. Is he mumbling? Subtitles. So I actually and I did this for the flashback dream sequences, whatever you want to call it, visions that Jack had. I actually put headphones on so I could hear what was being said clearly. Subtitles would just say undistinguishable chatter.
Right.
It wasn't. There's words. I wrote them down.
Yeah.
But so he says, contact the Makun, is what the guy actually says. The Makun.
The Makun. Okay.
Yeah. But subtitles called it the Marked Woman. And you think, Vedic,
the marked woman.
Marked Woman, Vedic, she's got her scar.
Wow.
So that I was like, oh my God. Okay, that's cool. So now again, we know either those guys were changelings, they're in cahoot, there's something going on, but that starts showing that conspiracy, and we start seeing how far back it really went.
Absolutely.
But yeah, it was the Makun. I don't know how you want to spell it. I did Makun, but
yeah.
But
the marked woman, that makes so much sense. Oh my gosh, that's awesome. Okay.
So, that, and then I want an embroidered Starfleet gaming chair, like the captain's chair, with the leather, the Starfleet symbol in it. I give me a little LED panel for like back massager or something. I thought that was one of my notes. And then the Shaw moment, yet again establishing how much of a dick he is. His whole line, dismissed. I said dismissed. It reminded me, and I don't know if this was purposeful, this just incidental, whatever, but it was the ever popular good day. I said good day. Like, it just, that the way he did it, that's what it reminded me of. And I'm like, my note is Shaw is very much a dick, but I'm really liking it.
Yeah.
And that's, he really, that's when he started growing on me, was then. And then the other note I had was one of the lines that came through from the Starfleet intelligence contact that we later learned as Worf. Right. For Raffi, says, I put it as a Jedi moment. Do not seek blame. Do not seek anger. Well, I mentioned later with Worf, when they're doing their fight set training, it's like Worf is 100% a Klingon Jedi. This dude, this is beyond what we understand of all of the Klingon masters. He is something completely different, and it's unique. You see it both in his gear. You see it in the way he's moving now, which is completely different. Which you'll appreciate it. My line to that, was that episode 3? I think it was episode 3 when they were.
Yeah, because we only see him walk off. Because I was like, oh, there's Worf. This is because one of the things I'm looking for is like, where do we see certain people come in?
Here's what I wrote. So Worf has, so this is when Raffi wakes up after her drug-induced coma, right? She walks in on him. He's training. So Worf has, like many still training martial arts elder statesmen, only gotten much better with age.
Yeah.
And he moves fluidly. Hats off to Michael Dorn. Everything about this character, from the way he moves, everything he's doing, just brilliant. Brilliant.
Yeah.
And then of course his epic introduction of I am Worf, son of Morg of the House Martok, son of Nikolai, and I can't remember his mom's name, Rashenko, or House Rashenko. I made chamomile tea. Would you like sugar? I was like, what? Wait a minute.
Oh no,
back that up.
Slayer of Galron.
Yes, Bane of House Duras.
Bane of the House Duras. Yes.
I knew I missed it.
Would you like sugar?
That's an intro.
So on one of the things I wrote down for season 2,
episode 2,
episode 2. I was hoping that Raffi's character would get better. I still cannot stand her character, and this is an actress who's a good actress. In fact, my wife just turned on. She's now rewatching Law and Order SVU, and she's in the first few seasons of SVU as a detective, playing a great part.
Yep.
And maybe, and like this goes back to my Anakin theory. Maybe we're just supposed to hate her as a character.
Yeah, it's I feel like I like her more this season than I have in the past. We talk about this a lot. I hate the whole JL.
Oh, yeah.
Hey, JL. What about JL? Oh, my God, JL. Stop it.
Yeah.
I didn't like that. I know it was a way to, through dialogue, show that they were extremely close.
Right.
It fell flat for me.
Right.
But I feel like they finally, after 3 seasons, are actually giving her some character development. When
Yeah.
Worf is showing is checking off through her psych profile. You see her at one point, she's stroking the cheek of the image of her granddaughter, who's now 4, and she was unborn in season 1. So you only, not only do you get that sense of time, how far it's gone, but you see that sense of longing. Talking to her ex-husband, where it's like, oh, I heard you ambushed our son at the doctor. No, I didn't ambush him. I just wanted to see my granddaughter. And and the fact that she had to make that choice right then and there between I know this was episode 2.
This is episode 2.
Yeah, so that choice between Starfleet and the universe, or your family, which should be your universe, and she had to pick Star. She didn't have to; she chose to.
Yeah, and that's like I said, we meet the husband, and we choose meeting the Ferengi instead of seeing her son.
Right, and so I feel like if they keep going the way they're going, by the end of the season, I think they'll have done justice to the character. Because I feel like every time she's in a scene now, they're giving her more. They're right now, in a lot of ways, she's Worf's protege. And so I feel like they're finally going, oh yeah, we had this character that she made out with 7, and I guess they were dating. They're not dating anymore. We don't really know, but
yeah,
we didn't do anything with her. She was the drug addict that JL. I see, like I'm doing it. That Jean-Luc Picard, that got pulled back in, and this and that. Like it was, it was a plot point,
right?
But it wasn't a character. Right, being the difference. This is the plot point to get us from point A to point B, not the character that helped develop that piece. Right. But I think we're going to get more of that, because as for these first 5 episodes, she's had more growth than at all, in my personal opinion, between seasons 1 and 2. She had some growth.
I would agree. I would agree with that.
So,
all right, and anybody who's currently watching, I do see that there is one person. One person is watching.
It's probably still my aunt.
We've had as most. We joke for the 4 people that are going to watch this. Say hi. Put in the comments. Say hi. Tell us where you're from. Okay, so that you know what? That's all I really had for episode 2. So,
yeah, I don't. I'm just kind of going through my, most of my notes were, I want this, I want that. I want Baddock's lighter. I loved her little light. I'm like, somebody make that.
And you know what? It probably exists somewhere.
I looked for it. I couldn't, but I looked at it as Baddock's lighter, and on Reddit, nobody put anything out there yet. But yes, somebody has to have made that. I want it. It's awesome. But yeah, I mean, overall, episode 2 was a supporting episode for 1. It should have been put out at one time, and I think it would have done better storytelling wise. But no, it was a good setup episode.
So season 3, one of my first notes is look out the back window.
Yes,
I thought that was so like that's so okay, yeah, our sensors are array. We can't see anything.
Yep.
Go send somebody in the back.
Send somebody back window. Yeah.
And of course, who's one of those people that's looking out the back window?
Mr. Changeling himself. He has a name apparently. I didn't write it down because they say it.
Yeah, it's ensign something or other.
Yeah. I knew he was an ensign.
No. Well, he might not be an ensign, but he is a transporter chief.
Right.
Which kind of makes sense of how he could get past.
Yeah.
All right. But yeah, I just thought that was just wicked. We talked about that conversation with between Picard and Dr. Crusher, but this is kind of where I started to kind of get into the timelines, like how long, because we this one was 17 seconds. That's the name of the episode.
Which, before you go on, the naming structure for all these episodes has been spot on. And that also tells you and is tied into the entirety of the episode, which is creating this novel as you kind of go through it. So
Yeah.
I love the way they've been naming episodes.
Let's see. Anyway, so she says 2 months before she left the Enterprise.
Mhm.
Okay. So we don't know if that 2 months was now I did not it's been since my year at Trek that I watched Nemesis.
Yep.
So I don't know if she left right after Nemesis or if she left a little bit after Nemesis, but I know that one of the plans that she was going off to do whatever. Nemesis happens in 2379.
Okay.
Okay. So if we take, using bad math, we go 2401 minus 2379. That makes Jack 22.
Which that's about right.
Which but in episode, and I think it's episode 4 that they actually establish an age. He says, what, you're 23, 24?
Right.
So, okay. Yeah.
We can bungle it.
Nitpicking. But I wrote that down so I could then further go,
Yep.
I thought the use of the portal weapon as a bat, in battle,
yes,
was amazing.
Yes.
I thought that was so awesome. Yes.
And the fact that it wasn't one time, it wasn't 2 times,
it was
3 times, and they didn't learn their goddamn lesson.
Okay. There's a line, and it might be from episode 2, where Vadic says, like she says, you can't run. You'll know it's too late when you're looking down, you're looking through the hole in your chest or something like that.
Yep.
All metaphors for the 3rd time that they used. Yeah, I was like,
Yeah. The writers have done a phenomenal job of planting these little seeds throughout the episodes, and then fulfilling that prophecy, if you will.
So, also, like something else I noticed, Shaw's internal bleeding not being caught by the scanner. And so my little note was too reliant on machines and less on natural. And it's like the doctor's like, well, I scanned him.
Right.
If you're the chief medical officer on a starship, shouldn't you be like, okay, there's still something wrong. Let me touch you now. Because that's how Beverly figured it out.
Well, but it also, think of it this way too. We have these changelings that have these partial solidified organs and whatnot. They have a blood. Scanner didn't pick any of that stuff up, right? So we know that there's also potentially something wrong with this. That's kind of a piece, right? I scanned them and I didn't see the internal bleeding. Well, maybe
there's a virus in the software that isn't picking stuff up.
Right. And it's kind of,
I hadn't thought of that before.
Yeah, and you know what? It was Star Trek, the Nickelodeon cartoon. The name escapes me right now. Prodigy. That's where it triggered in my head for that. I was like, is this did they somehow go in and change code? Because, well, we know in Prodigy they had that virus that was transmitted off the protostar onto everybody else's ship. They're attacking everything. I'm like, I mean, if they've got changelings in every part and piece and everywhere else, it's not potentially unheard of to say, hey, software update, bloop, and then all these scanners aren't picking up things like something as simple as internal bleeding, which we know from other episodes, from Voyager, from TNG, from DS9. Oh, it's got internal bleeding and this. We got to do operation. Like, they've talked about it before. I know they have. Now we've missed it. So to me, I think that's a breadcrumb that we're going to see later on. But I think it was one that, especially as we went through the dissections and everything else later in episode 4 and 5, that was something that I think that is a purposeful misstep.
Okay. And you're probably right. Let's see. All right. So even though this episode was great, and I loved the little piece between Picard and Riker when Thaddeus was born, and congratulations, and him talking about 17 seconds,
Yes.
and of course them using that again in Picard when he's going down to the sick bay
Yep.
for Jack, which I timed this time, and it is not 17 seconds.
I timed it too. I got like 27 seconds.
So it depends on where you start it.
Right.
Like at first I started it when Riker looks at Picard and says
go. Yeah.
So I started it then, and yeah, it was like 27, 28 seconds, something like that. And then I replayed it, and I did it again when he steps in the turbo lift and says sick bay. I hit it again, 22 seconds.
So here's the only way, and this is how I actually made the math work. I got 18 seconds. So I had the same thing, the 22 seconds from going to sick bay, but
okay,
where they're carrying Jack into the medical bay, I took that out as if it's happening in conjunction. So Riker's telling him to go. They're bringing him into sick bay because 7 and 9 is the one that alerted him. It wasn't Beverly. So they're pulling him in. He's going. I took that time out, and it's like 18 seconds.
Because there is a little bit of slow-mo.
Right. It's again.
Okay, that's a stretch.
It is.
That's a stretch.
But because of the way the storytelling is, right? So we're getting Riker's perspective from the time it got on, in theory, turbo lift to medical bay, 17 seconds. If you take out a visual that may or may not even need to have been in there, simply from the standpoint of we know he's in trouble, you take that section out and you do it again, you get close to 17 seconds.
Okay.
But I think and we had talked about this when it originally aired, right? The idea was to create that heartbreaking moment, foreshadowing. A lot of stuff they do, we've already said this, a lot of stuff they do is a lot of foreshadowing. So we have more foreshadowing in the Riker heartbreaking story about Thaddeus, and now here's Picard, never really wanted to be a dad. Oh my God, my son, 17 seconds. That felt like 32 until you start doing fancy math, but neither here nor there. We're not going to hold that to anything, but no, I still think that was brilliant with the way they handled it. Him literally just standing in the silent, lost in thought in the turbo lift. Again, the directing's been phenomenal, and most of it's been breaks.
The only well, I actually looked at the directorial breakdown. So you had the same the same person film the first 2 episodes, breaks the next 2. Then there's going to be basically 2. So Terry Metalis actually directs the last 2 episodes.
Nice. And I think that helps because of the way these all fit together, right? They really do fit. It really is a 5-act story that happens in 2 episode pieces. Episode 1 and 2 tie together. Episode 3 and 4 tie together. 5 and 6 are probably going to tie together. But we're seeing that symmetry kind of happening. And it's nice to have that same directorial vision as they go through that.
Yeah. When they figure out that with the blood in the water, and they're being tracked, and they go and they find that whatever gas is leaking from the pipe,
beryllium.
Jack says that looks like phaser fire. This is my note. Phaser fire. Wouldn't that set off the alarms?
But apparently not, because we've got people getting shot in the hallway, the changeling shooting the one security guard, and then shooting at 7. So, again, when you look at what I was talking about, where you have some kind of software alteration, you're right. There should have been some kind of alarm. There wasn't. So what's to say, again, these things are being done by all these different saboteurs and all these different ships that are
now, but
turning
here's
off
the thing.
sensors.
Let's go back to the original let's say fast forward from Star Trek 6 and backward from where we are now into the Next Generation. How many times did they fire phasers on the Enterprise and there were no alarms?
Yeah, a fair amount. It's
nitpicking. This is just me going, this is the fan in me going, but wouldn't that set off the alarms? You know, in my really bad Chekhov. Yeah, so I just thought, and then another thing that I noticed that was repeated in episode 5 is that the lettering on the bomb is Romulan.
Yes. Yep.
So do we have a faction of Romulans that are like hardcore? They still don't like whatever. And you know, maybe they're pissed off at Spock because they let he didn't get there fast enough. So there's this, and that they've teamed up with this other faction of, or this other faction of changelings, because this is actually where we find out that there are changelings.
Right. And we talk about the terrorist organization. And I think that, you know, there's a line that I can't remember if it's this episode or it's the next one. They talk about misdirection.
Yeah, because it's like, what was they stole the portal weapon, because it says what's the and my note is real weapon question mark, because my theory is that it potentially has to do with lore. Right.
You have to talk about that. I agree. So here's your fun part. So two things real quick. One, another Shaw line that just, again, why I like this character. They're getting shot. They see the strike, and it's, well, that's fun. Anyone want to throw more weird shit at me? It's like, yes, we do. It's coming, buddy. But the odd Picard Riker moment.
Okay.
Riker's now captain, sitting down. Picard's next to him, and Picard says to him, "Well, I think it might be time to call me number one."
Yeah. Okay, so I think that was in there to be like, oh, that's so cute, but you know, where he's like, oh, you know, kind of handing off that I'm, you know, it's like I'll be your second because you're the one in charge,
right?
But, and another one of my notes here, Picard basically arguing with Riker in front of the entire bridge staff.
Yes.
Not
which
just
he would
once,
never have allowed,
but twice.
Right.
That is not Starfleet. No. It just, and even though this was a good episode, that was one of the things where I was like, that just doesn't, and even when he comes, so he goes down, he has this, you know, oh, you know, I helped bring my son back to life. And then he goes back up and he says, you've got to do this. Right. You have never felt this way. And it's like, but wait a minute, didn't you just have that 17 seconds that Riker had? Like, so I felt that Picard, like Riker had this, you know, it's the scariest moment that you'll have as a parent. And this is, or at least this was my experience.
Right.
And hoping that maybe Picard would have the same experience, but he didn't.
Correct. Yeah. And I put that down. The note I had when it was Picard wants to fight, Riker wants to run. It's very symbolic that Picard will focus on a fight to run away from fatherhood.
Ooh.
That's how I saw it. Because, you know, he'll go cold on Jack out of nowhere. Thank you for your time, Jack. Good speaking with you. You know, and now he's back to being stoic.
Mm-hmm.
So to me, that's what this was. I need a distraction from feeling what I'm feeling. Let's fight these motherfuckers. Like that was the point, right? Instead of Riker going, flip, our job is to get everybody home. And both of them have that same goal, right? They both want to get everybody home. The difference is, how do you do it? But I think that again, with this one, from that emotional standpoint, I think it's Picard does not want to give up control. One, does not want to focus on himself. Two, and is truly running away from what is important now by running towards what he's used to, which is let's go fight and save the galaxy because I'm Picard. I can do this. It was a prideful moment, which then we tie into the pride versus patience stuff that comes up later on. But one of the other fun notes I wrote, beheadings are on Wednesday.
Yeah.
You have to remember that. I was like, I kind of I want to have that on a plaque now. Like, just a reminder, beheadings are on Wednesday. Again, Michael Dorn owns this character a billionfold. I mean, just amazing.
Absolutely.
Let's see. The good cop, bad cop scene with Worf and Rafi, I thought that was actually very well done.
Yeah.
Because and if it was not Michael Dorn or Worf, however you want to phrase it, as the alternating good cop, bad cop, I think it would have been pointless.
Right.
But because he was there, and again, I think he and the character of Rafi play well off each other so well, because you're seeing shades of Worf season 2, season 3 TNG, the angry Klingon. I think it plays well, and of course it was acted very well and written very well. So the vision that we get now being triggered by his near-death experience, which, as we find out in episode 5, he was having nightmares as a baby.
Right.
He wouldn't sleep because he was afraid of what he would see, kind of thing, which he doesn't remember, which I thought that was kind of cool.
Are you talking about the vision at the end of episode 4?
The one, right there at the end where he finally sees the red roots. And there's 7.
Okay. No,
sorry.
You're right.
I'm on episode 3.
Yeah, because I was like, wait a minute.
Yeah, yes, no, we'll get to that one in a second.
Where he's on the floor,
right. and he sees 7, and then the roots.
Yeah.
So I wrote it down
the first time we see the
right. Yeah. So I wrote it down as red roots / veins, because even before with Shaw, I had made a note that we saw, even though it's in different spots, we're seeing this blood pattern trail, which leads to blood in the water. But there's something about this. Again, breadcrumbs. We're seeing the same kind of trail of blood, similar patterns, and it could just be coincidence from the production tech dropping it. But there's something with that. So I don't know if it's roots or veins, but this is one of those scenes where you kind of hear and you kind of don't hear what's being said. So this is one when I put on my headphones, I listened to it about 20 times. So it's connect the branches. We will be together soon. Find me, Jack, and then another word. And I could not, what it sounded like after this is not a joke, after the 25th time I listened to it, it sounded like Dark Sun. But I don't, I don't know.
So whose voice when you were listening to that, whose voice did you hear?
So in that instance, it was Seven's, but it also changed to Vadek's at one point. And then there is another, like the next vision he has with the voices. It does literally change every time there's a sentence. Find me, find us, connect.
No, but but in
episode 3,
scene.
It started off as Seven's voice, and then it went to Vadek, and then it went to Beverly Crusher's.
Okay, because in the beginning, like right at the beginning of episode 5, I know I'm jumping ahead here, where I know that there was more said, but I specifically heard "come home."
Yes,
that was in Vadek's voice.
Yes, it was.
That was in Vadek's voice.
Yeah, that was Jack. Come home.
Okay, and then since we're talking about voices, where else? Oh, find me, connect us. I wrote down Vatic or Dr. Crusher.
So
Because
the answer is both.
It sounded like a little bit of like one word was Vatic's voice and the other word was Crusher's voice.
Yeah, and that is what they did. And
then, that's all in episode 5.
Where did I write it? Because I actually broke down whose voices. Let's see. Vatic come home. Oh, here it is. Into episode 4. So Find Me was 7. Find Us was Vatic. Find Me was the same voice as the unnamed baddie changeling guy. Okay. And then Together Soon was in Beverly Crusher's voice.
Okay.
So there's something going on, which is super, super cool. But that was another one that I was like, and then his vision that he had that he smacked his head. So we have the red door, everything's in red.
Yeah.
You have a cloud with a storm happening, and it's
are we okay? Is this back in episode 3?
I'm flipped over to 4, just at the end, since we just talked about that with the Find Me, Find Us, Find Me, Together Soon. So in it, you also have there. It looks like 3 looked like smokestacks. I couldn't pause it quick enough. Looked like 3 little smokestacks. So, and then of course the red door. But there's something obviously happening to him. But the hell is it? I don't know. I'm very, very curious about it. But no, there's. I loved what they did with the audio, because it was, like I said, subtitled just as undistinguishable chatter. And I'm like, nope, I'm hearing it. And there was another one that he had in episode 5, when he came out of the vision holding the pistol. Yeah. The audio, my brain's telling me this, and I haven't checked it. So anybody's watching, know that this is a theory until I can prove otherwise. The audio sounds like it's being played backwards. So there's speech there, but it sounds like it's backwards. So I want to actually record that audio, put it into my computer system, play it backwards, see if I can actually hear something. But it sounds like when you do human speech backwards, it's the flow of a speech goes like that, and when you play it backwards, it goes like it. So it sounded like that with some modulation. I want to play with it. I want to see if I can actually find out, because what they've been doing so far, it's another breadcrumb, or it could just be blah 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 blah. But it sounded important. And I think we should absolutely skip over when it comes to episode 3, because this is the end of my notes. Skip over the trash can.
The trash can?
The changeling trash can.
Oh. Yeah, because because that's actually where we go into episode, because in episode 4, because I asked, why does every changeling have a pot just like Odo's, which was given to him by his original handler? Like, why? And I know I think we discussed this. I think Trek Culture actually asked the question.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Yeah.
I think it was an oversight. Just to be honest, I think this was legitimately an oversight. I have a hard time believing this is a Odo Easter egg, aside from it's the same bucket, or the only thing, and I'm really reaching here, so bear with me. Just like with the Romulan on the explosives, I feel like, again, if you're a terrorist organization, how do you misdirect? Well, here's a bomb that has Romulan ties to it. Here's a bucket that has Bajoran ties to it. Maybe it was Odo. I mean, you're throwing out stuff left and right. But again, just like the portal gun with the Starfleet Recruitment Center, we made you look left so we could go off to the right.
Yeah.
Maybe that's what's happening. But it bothers me.
Yeah.
It bothers me.
And the residue.
God, fucking
I think that's okay. That's really funny.
It's funny,
really
but
funny. I doubt that's never been a thing though.
No.
But I can kind of see where he's going at, because when we sleep or where we sit, our body sheds, and
Yep.
so there's potential for like watching Gattaca.
Yeah.
The eyelash is what gets him, because it just kind of falls and it's
Yep.
caught. So it could be that even though that they are goo, that there's a potential for some residue, or as he calls it, residue.
Residue.
I love it. I love it.
And the fact that Seven even goes, residue. So like I actually I want to go back and rewatch some episodes of DS9 to see if there and there may be mention of something being left behind in his bucket.
Yeah.
Just because I'm curious, but again,
right.
I feel like sometimes they insert humor and it feels weird. This was one where I'm like, okay, like it didn't hit me. Like I wasn't laughing out loud. I'm like, that's Shaw being a dick. I mean, so like I got it, but I loved as he's going through all of that, when he's talking to Seven about it, and I need your help, and blah blah blah, and listen, you're a great officer. I'm sorry for how I've acted. You're a great officer. You're a natural born leader. This is what I would say if I was a changeling.
Yeah.
That's what she said. Is something you would say if you were a changeling and not just a dick. Yeah, you got it. Like I was like, yes. And I want his knife.
Yes.
I want his
knife. Well, love the knife.
I want the knife. I will, if I can't find it, I will make it. And I'll send you one, but I want that knife. The only other random thing I wrote down. So as many times as we've been into 10 forward, with all the neon signs, I finally looked at it, and the beer, being a beer guy, right? The beer sign in neon, it's for Arcanus beer. And I'm like, Arcanus. Why do I know that name? I know it. It's not a character. So I did what I do. I go online. Oh, it's the Arcanus sector from the Dominion War, when the Klingons were going to take over a section of Federation space, disputed Federation space. So it's right in between. It's on the edge of Federation space and the border of Klingon. And it was heavily focused on in DS9 in multiple episodes. Mm-hmm. So even that neon sign for Arcanus beer, intergalactic lager, is yet another Easter egg to the Dominion War.
Yeah.
Which makes me wonder, is that going to play a factor? Probably not. But here we are also on butting up between the edge of Federation space and uncontrolled territory.
Right.
So we have that same kind of strategic importance if you actually are geeky enough to go, well, what does that sign back there say? Hold on a minute. That sounds familiar, like I did. So
yeah. When it goes, 5 years ago, which according to this would be 2396.
Right.
That's when he's having this, which is, I think, which I find it is funny that even though this is after the fact of him dealing with the Romulan stuff and all that kind of stuff, he's just having his lunch.
Right.
And, but before Picard season 2, where they talk about, it's like, oh, why'd you leave Starfleet? Right. But he's talking positively about Starfleet. Now, that could just be him being Picard, right, of like, no matter what his feelings are, these are, it's like, no, like even like my relationship with my past employer. Yeah. Did not leave on a good note, but did they do me and my family well while I was there? Absolutely. Like they didn't. I mean, yeah, I was kind of screwed over here and there, but when we look at the macro, were they good for me and my family? Absolutely.
Right.
So, so I think that's probably, it's like, yeah, he's like, yeah, Starfleet was good to me.
Well, and I think the way I also took it was, you've got these young, hungry cadets, ensigns that mm-hmm. are coming to the legend that he is, and want to hear the stories. And so there's an ego prideful play there where it's like, well, hi, my lunch. Well, can you tell us about this? well, let me tell you about the one time where, so like he didn't care. It was never about the lunch. It was, we want to hear your stories. So the ego came in, right?
Yeah.
And that's part of what I took away with that. But there was, I don't disagree. I think that's part of where it's like he's looking at the bigger picture and going, look, in the overall, Starfleet was my family, which of course he says, it's the only family I ever needed.
Mm-hmm.
But it's that moment where he is now yet again on the pedestal and being praised and loved by his adoring fans versus the Starfleet brass that are giving him shit. So it's almost like he's having that opposite reaction. Oh, they love me, so I'm going to keep them loving me because one day they'll be the brass. And
right,
I think there was a lot of pride and ego involved in that. And again, that's also another theme in a lot of these later episodes was pride versus patience. Pride cometh before the fall. So I think it's interesting. But yeah, that the funny part is when you do the math again. So if we say Jack is 22, which is the math that we did.
The math that I came up with is 22. Yeah.
Subtract 5 years.
He's 18.
17.
No, 17. Yeah.
And he's in a bar.
Yeah.
By himself. It's just like, I mean, I grant future, all of this stuff, I got it. But that was a moment where I'm like, I understand the importance of it. I love the beauty of it, the symmetry of it, how it plays off like it's almost Jack's memory and it turns into Picard's realization.
Mm-hmm.
And you see it on Patrick Stewart's face as he goes through those emotions and realizations there at the end of the episode. But
also, here's the thing: it's 10 forward.
True. So it's a bar grill eatery. It's not a 21 up only club.
Yeah.
I mean, I get it.
So potentially, like, and if he's been he could have a fake ID.
Yeah. I mean, they've already established that he is many things.
So, but yeah, he's a little young to be in a bar, but I don't know.
But then again, I mean, there are people that are 17 that go and sign up for the military to join at 18. So it's we don't know exactly. Could there be a Starfleet recruitment center nearby? I mean, it's probable because we could tell a Starfleet Academy at least is nearby. So it's probable that, hey, he's signing up. So yeah, come on in, get something to eat, meet some other cadets and ensigns that have gone through this. And, it could be overly welcoming. Who knows? It's interesting because then when you go back to listen to his stories with, all the stuff he and his mom did, and granted, the way that they set the canon for it was he went to school in London when they talk about the accent. He went to school in London and never shook the accent. Well, define school, elementary school, middle school, high school, maybe some college, probably not, but who knows? So,
but so even if he still is in primary school or whatever they call school, high school, and his mom is like, yeah, this is who your father is, then he might have been like, hey, I'm going to skip school and transport over to, because there are no long-term, he doesn't have to catch a plane. He can just get in a transporter and transport to the,
which
I'm going to go to Starfleet.
Yeah. We established that in season 1 when you have the little transporter gates.
Yeah.
And they just, whoop, and there they are. And God only knows where they came from, but here they are now,
Yeah. So, we know it exists for Starfleet. There's got to be some type of, similar thing for civilians.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So it was, like I said, it's my little nitpicks, because, and I've had this conversation about other things. When you have to find something to complain about, it's not even a complaint, but something to point out and be like, that's how good an episode is.
Yeah.
And it's not like we're purposely looking for something. It's just everything hit on so many cylinders that one thing for me kind of stood out. And I'm like, I mean, heartbreaking, but dude. But alternatively, right, 17, having your father, the guy that is your father, and you assume he kind of knows who you are, say Starfleet is the only family I I have and have ever needed.
Right.
That explains every ounce of who he becomes over the next 5 years.
Yeah.
And why he goes and becomes more like I wrote it down. The captain that was the privateer, that episode, that Romeo and Juliet episode of TNG.
Not that character.
Hold on, I wrote it down.
I know it's
Okana.
Oh, yeah.
Okana. He has that Okana vibe. I wrote that down when we first met him.
The outrageous Okana.
Yeah,
that was the
who knew he moonlights as a DJ.
Yeah.
So if anyone doesn't understand what I'm talking about,
yeah,
Lower Decks, last season, last episode,
yeah,
he was the DJ at the captain's party. It was kind of cool.
Yeah.
But no, like I think that, you know, to kind of summarize everything as we come close to the 2-hour mark. I know we'll still talk for a few more minutes, but
yeah,
I think episode 1 started off, and because you and I talked for like 3 hours after it dropped, it left a lot of lingering questions. I wasn't quite sure how this was going to play out. I was worried that all we're going to get is the last 2 episodes. Everyone comes together, saves the day, and we're done. Thankfully, that's not the way it's gone. A lot of these threads have been addressed, answered. We have new threads, and we're realizing that some are shifting. Oh, that was forgot. So I had 2 things I was going to bring up. Sorry. Going back to, I think it was episode 3. Was it 3? Yes. So again, when Raffi's waking up,
okay,
it's Worf, right? Big fan of opera. The song that's playing, thank you subtitles. The song that's playing, Les Troyens, which is truly, it's one of the greatest operas, bar none.
Yeah,
it's the story of the Trojans.
Ooh, okay. So the connection I made there is it is the exact same music that was played at the beginning of First Contact.
Right. But
yeah,
it's about the Trojans. So now we have a purposeful, and yes, there's that throwback, right? But when you look at it, how did the Trojans get in? Well, or what was the issue of the Trojan? We have the Trojan horse. They were celebrating the freedom from the Greeks. Here you go. Yeah. Here's a gift for you. Oh my God, this is so amazing. We're going to bring it in and get really drunk. Oh no, soldiers came out and killed a bunch of us. And so here we have yet again misdirection, things that are hiding in plain sight that we're not seeing. And then they start talking about misdirection. What was really the point of the portal gun was not the point, then what was. So we're getting that. I think that's where a lot of the stuff, again, the Romulan bomb and all this other stuff.
Well, also, if you are a terrorist organization, you're not going to have your own. You're going to buy from whichever source.
Which is where Steed comes in, and the Vulcan crime lord that I thought was as a brilliant play.
Oh
because it when he was like, it's logical, and I'm like,
actually, it is.
You're right. That's 100% logical. Oh my God! Like, because I was so upset at first. I'm like, oh, he's a Romulan. No, he's not his Vulcan master. That's a Vulcan. Man, what is it?
But he brought up so many good points, and it's like he says, well, it's logical because of this, and this, and this, and you're like, you're right.
You're right. I can't dispute that. Your logical is infallible. But the one thing that I was going to bring up as well, because she said Romulans a minute ago. It reminded me, I had the note down. When Jack and Picard are having their connecting moment, and you have the cadets come in. I am curious. Someone will have to figure this out for me. I am curious. One of the characters is we kind of pan over, and he's like, "Look, look behind you." And so you look at everybody. You've got the one ensign laying against the lieutenant, and he's holding her. And then you go to the table, and at first it looks like, because pointy ears, right? It looks like a Vulcan holding and rubbing the arm and consoling somebody else. Is it a Vulcan who are not touchy-feely people, or could it actually be a Romulan that is in Starfleet? Because with them being refugees, it's not improbable that they would have had some younger people that didn't have the indoctrination of the Romulan people at this point.
Well, so how much that then goes to the question: how much time has gone by?
Right.
Because in season 2, whatever that Romulan character's name is,
Yeah.
he is the first Romulan to join Starfleet.
Right.
So depending on how much time has gone by,
and I think
yes, potentially you could be,
Yeah.
but even with that, even if it's just a year, not enough time has gone by.
So this,
So I think it is
he was
maybe
an ensign with his pip, so he
yeah.
maybe knew,
so
but
maybe he's a
or he could be like Spock and be half Vulcan, half something else.
Yeah,
I mean,
potentially.
it was just one of those moments where I looked at it and went, "Is that a Vulcan like literally consoling somebody? That's not logical. That's emotional."
Yeah.
And then when you turn, I'm like, he does look. I mean, he's got the ears, he's got everything. Like he's Vulcan. But then again, the visual similarities between the Vulcans and the Romulans, their cousins, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And knowing that we have a Romulan member in Starfleet, it begged the question.
Right.
Again, I think it may have just been a makeup department decision. Hey, put the ears on him and put him in. Like I who knows? It may mean nothing. But it was interesting to yet again in a moment see all these different species going through a very similar moment where they are needing that release, that to get away, to be in that tropical paradise while the ship implodes, as Jack put it. I thought that was, that meant a lot. That was pretty cool.
Yeah. So season 1 got a lot of flack for its F word.
Yep.
And it's like, well, we're human. People swear. It's the military. Or not. People swear. Okay. Yeah. Oh, you could use those excuses.
Mm-hmm.
It's Starfleet. It's Gene Roddenberry's universe. Like, what the hell is going on is the worst swearing that you could do. Now, throwing, saying shit, crap, goddamn, like those are, those could be more common, and I don't have a problem with it.
Right.
The dropping the F-bomb in season 1 was like, was it appropriate? Was it not? No, it wasn't. No. But it's also from a character that we've never met before.
Right.
The F-bomb that Picard drops, as in 10 fucking grueling hours,
yes,
was completely uncalled for. It is not the character at all. No. And I was
I understand why they did it, but I didn't agree with it. So I understand the purpose behind it was to express how difficult it was, and it's uncharacteristic for him to do it. But I didn't, to your point, for someone that is an archaeologist, somebody who is an admiral, somebody who's an artist, all this stuff, it didn't.
He could have expressed it verbally a different way.
He would have. And yes. I think this is one of those moments of somebody not, as they read the dialogue, somebody not checking it. Now, mm-hmm. if you ask Patrick Stewart about it, because this is something I'm waiting to see in some interview or whatever, to see his take on it, because he may come into it as the character and say, I saw this in this moment and I questioned it, but when I went and we did the table read or we did whatever, I realized that he had finally let down his guard and he was not admiral or captain or what, he was Jean-Luc, he was the father, and he was making the point. I mean, I was non-Star Trek related story, but I was one of the church services with one of my pastoral mentors. He was doing this church service for a mega church, and in it, mm-hmm. he's talking about all these different things, and he goes, and look, guys, it's 100% bullshit, and then stopped. And of course, you hear the universal gasp. There's no air in the building at all. And he goes, before you start getting upset that I used that word, I want to be very clear. I did it on purpose. I did it on purpose because now I have your attention. And I think that's a way that I can rationalize it. But as someone that uses the F-bomb on a daily basis in almost every sentence I use, I didn't think he needed to do it there.
Yeah,
I really didn't.
Yeah, he didn't.
Shaw could drop it all day, and I'd be like, "That's the character."
I would, and because that's his character.
Yeah,
that's his character. That is not Picard's character.
No. To say it was ungodly grueling, or to say you will never understand how grueling those 10 hours were.
Yeah.
It was a nightmare. He would expound upon it instead of one-lining it. But again, pressed for time, there's a whole litany of parts and pieces that could rationalize it. But I agree. It didn't feel. It was shocking to be shocking. I felt.
Yeah.
So
the let's see. We've talked about the survivor's guilt.
yes.
That was just an amazing expression. I like that, like, visually, as they started to make it out, that they threw an asteroid, just like Vedic threw the starship.
Yes.
Because it's like, did they just throw a starship at us? Yes.
Yeah, they did.
It's like,
now,
you just threw an asteroid. Yes,
yeah,
I did.
I did. Which all of that 100% goes back to Lower Decks. Thank you, Lower Decks. I mean, that was that's immediately what I thought of. I know I talked to you about it originally. That's straight from Lower Decks when they had the Junker episode, and they're in they're throwing with the tractor beam. The race is throwing crap at them, and it's like, why is it doing so much damage? Well, their shields aren't built to withstand kinetic force like that. Oh, yeah. Throw something back, So we did.
Yeah,
it's a tit for tat.
Yeah. No, just the one thing that like Vedic's hand. Okay, so she cuts off her hand.
Yep.
It becomes, it kind of goes up in this 3D, like,
skull with
communication device.
Skull with muscle structure is how I see
it. Is she a changeling? Or is she a hybrid?
Could that be part of this evolution piece? Right. We already established that they have evolved, is the word that's used. My original theory, which then got pulled out the wayside of, maybe they're inhabiting the bodies instead of killing them and taking over. Maybe they're inhabiting the bodies. It got thrown out the window because the transport chief's dead body falls out of his closet.
Right.
But there has to be something there. So it absolutely could be. It could also be, we don't see her hand come off. We just see her cutting around.
Okay. So we don't see her hand come off, but we do see it regenerate.
Well, that's true. Okay, I forgot about the regeneration. It does come back.
And the goo
comes back up.
The goo comes back and comes back onto her hand.
So what if, being that guy, what if she lost her hand?
Okay.
She's not a changeling. This is part of how they can track her and control her and talk to her, is they said, here, put this on you. It's one of the younglings or whatever, and she has a hand now, but she has to lop it off to talk to him and then stick it back on. It's like a changeling prosthetic.
Ooh, I like it. That's a great, yeah.
Because she herself didn't change. And if she was a changeling and she had to do that, why would she have to cut it off?
Yeah.
It's a changeling. They just drop it there, it does something else, put it back up, you're good. So just that was my thought, because I did forget that it did regenerate. But that was my thought originally. And what my note said was, is this a changeling prosthetic or is she a changeling? So I'm still curious, because I don't think we've seen the last of her. She's too much of a great character.
I think she's very much a part of what's going to be going on.
Yep.
In this episode, at the very end, we get our first star date.
Yep.
And when we talk about time frame, let's see, I got to bring something up here. So, shrink this down just a little bit. All right. So, it was star date 7818 point. Let's see, 78183.10. Now, in the original series and in the Next Generation, Voyager, DS9, any of the original stuff, there was never there were never two digits at the end of a star date.
Right.
It was always 0.1 or point whatever. Which That's a J.J. Abrams thing, because when they put J.J. Abrams star dates have 2 digits at the end at the other side of the decimal. When we talk about the timing, because as we go into episode 5, at the beginning of episode 5, we get star date 78186.03.
Yep.
Okay. And in episode 5, it is established we are days away, which I would say is less than a week,
Right.
but more than tomorrow,
Right.
and more than maybe the next day. So I would say 3 days.
I would give it
3 to 4 days.
I'd say 3 to
4
5
days away. Okay.
Yeah, I'd go 3 to 5 personally. But
now, April, I was trying to figure out if we get rid of the 7-8 and we go 183.10 or 186.03. I'm going to share this really quick here. Share screen, window. So this, I came up with a star date formula, I don't know, 30 years ago.
Yeah.
This little star date up here, 123214.6, is today's star date based on it's the 21st century.
Yep.
It is the year 2023. So today is actually 214.6, which it's March 19th.
Yep.
So April 16th would be more like in the 300s, potentially mid 300s. So my star date calculator, or my star date calendar that I came up with, the formula, I actually tested it against the date in here, the star date given for the christening of the Enterprise D, and they also give a calendar date. My star date formula matches up.
Nice.
By chance. Like, I did not formulate it based off of those 2 dates. It just was like, oh my gosh. So obviously they're just doing their own thing with it when it comes to star dates. But I checked that. I double checked that just to see like what kind of
right,
where they are in that. So not even close. Let's see. Is there anything for episode 4? Are we finished with episode 4?
I think we're done. Look at my notes one more time, make sure.
Yeah, because we the
talked
end
about
of
the
it
vision.
was very first contact vibes for me. We talked about that.
Yes. We talked about the vision. Yeah, and the only note that I had, which I wrote it as I watched it, was the whole surfing the wave thing. I felt like we've seen that before, which is not a bad thing. They had that really nice Farpoint reference.
Yes.
And then that was kind of like, I wrote a note that just said, we got the Riker speech, just like Lower Decks talks about. Is Shaw cool with everybody now? And then in notes for episode 5, I went, I guess he's not. So that was it. I don't, episode 4 was really good. There's a lot to it.
Yeah.
Again, his PTSD speech was brilliant.
Amazing.
Just absolutely brilliant. Again, having a character like him being done by an actor like he is in a setting, again, against such an established actor in Patrick Stewart, and really is able to hold his own, was absolutely beautiful.
Yeah.
Really
the other thing that I really liked is them establishing the concept of a life deck. And I think you and I may have talked about this, but like I kind of envision that as like fire doors in a building. Like, life deck, it might just be one deck on a starship that is more reinforced than the rest.
Right.
You get everybody in there so they can either be protected or and then that would be really kind of where they have access to the life pods.
and that's they kind of visually establish that as everyone's grouping up into single rooms, doors are closing.
Yeah.
So you see like the doctor's there with a bunch of people behind her. So it is kind of established now, which what we had talked about of exactly that there is a single deck that is overly reinforced, has whatever it needs, that they can then just turn off, turn the air conditioning off of everywhere, but on that deck, right? So you're always gonna have something. But that also, as they said, life deck, life deck power at 0% or 2%, 1%, 0%. That also goes to show how dangerous of a situation they were in, that they are literally giving everything they have to survive.
And I think it also calls to how starships were constructed once they started running into the Borg.
Yes. Yep.
So you have a dedicated deck. Going into episode 5, Dr. Crusher asking permission from a retired admiral to see about doing the autopsy.
Yeah.
Shouldn't she be asking Shaw?
Yeah.
Or Riker? Like, why would she ask Picard permission? I didn't get that.
So I saw that as a bad habit.
Okay.
So used to going to Picard for permission that she went to Picard for permission.
Okay, I would buy that.
Just yes, honey, I'm loving on you, but I'm talking. You
I would buy that.
I think that's what it was. Sorry, I got my dog laying across my lap and she's bumping into me anytime I stop petting her. But no, that was my thought. Was it's like, well, with your permission, I was almost waiting for the line of, I'm retired and about to get put on dealing with the security people. I don't care.
Yeah.
But
well, I think this happened before that scene where he's like, okay, I'm gonna turn the ship back. Riker says, I'm gonna turn the ship back over to you. He goes, I stand relieved. And he's like, okay, well, do you want to face these people instated or reinstated?
Right.
And she's like, reinstated. He goes, okay, I reinstate you.
Yeah.
And he says, so just so you know, I've already called Starfleet. So
they're on their way.
You guys here, and you can get your bullshit story straight.
Yeah. Yeah,
it was walks out.
And I wrote it down because I'm like, this is literally my note says, Shaw is back to being a jackass. This is why I like him.
Yeah.
I'll step outside so the three of you can get your bullshit story straight. I walked out. I'm like, oh yeah, he's
and I just love that. I absolutely love that. And then of course this is going back and forth to we've got the Titan and we've got
Metalis Prime.
Metalis Prime, where they find out, Daystrom has a sophisticated AI protecting their database.
Yep.
And it's mentioned several times. My theory is that it's Moriarty. And I know we talked about that.
Yep.
And I was like, because it's like, okay, well, we know Moriarty is going to be part of this show. And that's the only reason I'm throwing that out there. It's a sophisticated AI. We
know he was sent to the Daystrom Institute, or he was sent somewhere. I don't know if they actually said Daystrom Institute, but
I don't think he was ever sent to. He was put in. Well, actually, he was okay. So he was put in charge, or basically he was put into this little cube so he could have this virtual world.
Right.
And then basically Barclay had him.
Yeah.
And he was Barclay's. And then the ship crashes in Generations. Right. And Barclay goes probably to the Daystrom Institute. Like he goes to, he's working at Starfleet. So potentially he could have been like, well, where does this go? I can't just hold on to this forever.
Right.
So I could see that, potentially he would get there, and then the Daystrom Institute is seeing this AI, and then they're like, oh, hey,
want a job?
You want to do this? You want a job?
You've got to pay for the electricity that you're using somehow.
Yeah. So I think that would be, I think that's the AI. In watching some of the, this season this season in Picard, where we see the ship, we know that the little star base that they were around, that's the Daystrom Institute.
Right.
and it looks like that they're trying to run away. So hopefully we'll see that in episode 6 or 7.
I'm hoping.
I don't know.
I'm hoping we don't end up with an Ocean's 11 moment.
Yeah.
Like I don't mind the idea of a heist thing. If they do it Star Trek ways that we've had before, I think it'll work really well. But if they go like, okay, all right, so what we need a tiny little guy. Hey, that's you, and we need this, Rafi, that's you, and we like. Then I'll be like, okay, that bad writing. But again, everything else hit on so well. That's my.
Oh, you mean kind of like that episode where they Picard plays the French dude when they yeah.
Which
I don't. That was kind of stupid.
Eye patch.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Come on.
So one of my notes. Where was it? Oh, yes. The Intrepid shows up.
Yeah. How cool does that look?
I thought that the Titan A was an ugly ship. It has grown on me. There's still some elements that I don't really like, but for the most part, it's not a bad looking ship.
Right.
I really, really like it. The Intrepid, though, who designs these ships? Really?
So I think what they did,
like I know that they probably got some of the ships from. Oh, actually, they've already stated that at least an episode in season 2, they got a lot of the ships from Star Trek Online. But
I think what they did was they did like the top down, right? You look at the Titan, they did the top down, and they said, okay, instead of a full circle, let's just cut those angles right at the back. Yeah. This one, we have a Constitution class, and they went, oh, so just like it looks like the Enterprise. So what we'll do is we're going to scoop out the inside. So you've got the giant nacelle deflector shield, and then we're going to scoop back so it's just empty because it's cool. And I loved when I saw it at first, and this is absolute honest fact. It comes on screen, and you get the side shot. I'm like, oh my God. Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh my God. So I'm like, this is beautiful. Holy crap. It looks great. And then the camera pans and turns. And I'm like, it's the reference I would say is it's like running into out the street and seeing someone like, damn, she looks really good. She looks really, whoa. Sorry, sir. I didn't mean, I apologize, sir. It's not what, I've had that.
Or what was it? I don't know if it was a comedian, but I heard somewhere it's like I saw this beautiful woman from 20 feet away that when I got up close looked like she would look beautiful from 20 feet away.
So this is I'm going to throw myself under the bus here. So I was a manager at Suncoast Motion Picture in the mall back in the 90s.
Yes, and that was a great place. I got many a movie poster from there.
Me too. Loved it. I was working one day. I've only been there. It was my 3rd or 4th day. So I'm opening the store by myself. And one of the other managers, his aunt walked by. And so she called him. So and I hanging out in the mall, watching movies, selling stuff, doing my job. So I get this call at the store. It's about 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock. Oh, thanks for calling Suncoast Motion Picture. This is Rob. How can I help you? Hey, Rob. Hey, what's going on, buddy? How you doing? Good. And he's laughing. And I'm like, what's up? He's like, so my aunt called, okay? She walked by the store, okay? Were you doing something weird? No, I'm walking around the store, like, alphabetizing and taking care of shipment. And we had like 3 customers, and I ordered some movies for this guy. And okay, why? She wanted to know who the ugly woman was that we hired at Suncoast, and you're the only person working. And I went, this is also why I typically have a goatee. I didn't have any facial hair at the time. And I'm like, oh, no.
You're the ugly woman. That's
so
really funny.
When I finally met his aunt, it's about like 2 weeks later. I meet his aunt. She comes in to drop something off for him or whatever. And she walks in. And I went, hey, how you doing? Oh, I'm good. I'm looking for Doug. I said, oh, Doug's in the back. By the way, I'm sorry. I'm Rob. I'm the ugly woman you saw the other day. It's good to meet you. Red-faced. I didn't know. I don't care. When you have long hair as a guy, you get used to it. So it's the same thing. Watching that and having that moment of, or as Tim mentioned, great comedic musician. He said one time, he's like, I was at a bar and I'm leaning over the counter and there's a mirror behind the bar and I'm watching this lady back there undress me. And she's like, oh. And I turned around and I watched her dressed me again, and put a top hat on me as she gagged. I didn't even have a top hat. Now I have more clothes than she took off of me. So that's how it was for me. It was like, oh, yes, it's so, whoa. It's, oh, okay.
Yeah, so there was a role-playing game company that I don't think is still around called FASA. Don't know what FASA stood for, but they were basically they had licensing rights from Paramount for the first Star Trek role-playing game, and they designed ships and did some stuff that was like, no, absolutely no. And so I was like, I knowing that the ships come from Starfleet Online, which is fine. No offense to the person who actually designed the ship, because you'll probably never watch this, but it's an ugly ship, my opinion.
And there's somebody else that looks at it and is like, oh my God, this is the sexiest thing I've ever seen. I love what they're doing. I love the fact that, in Discovery, we have no connections to our nacelles. It's beautiful.
Yeah, I don't get that either.
Again, it's to each their own. It's like I said, I saw it from the side, and I got all excited, and I saw it from the front. Went, no. But what came off of that ship, though?
Yes. Oh my God. Okay. So when you had already mentioned, him humming in the Shaw humming in the thing, he goes, "I'm just giddy. I'm just giddy." He says, "It's not like you're gonna." He's like, "Well, we've saved the universe a couple times, so they might remember that." He goes, "Or
so
they might remember when you crash land the saucer section of the Enterprise, or when you broke the Prime Directive just to shag some
someone of Vitalis." I wrote it all down. So it's,
oh my God, that was so funny.
So it's or they might remember that time that someone hot dropped the saucer section of the Enterprise D on a planet, or that time someone threw the Prime Directive out the window so they could snog a villager on Baku, or the time that you boys nearly wiped out all of humanity by creating a time paradox in the Devron system. Basically, when it comes to rescues from danger, you two have a real chicken and the egg thing happening. I was like, you're not wrong. You're not. You're 100% right. And that's why I like you as an asshole. Please don't ever change. And even as the episode goes on, and we'll talk about it in a minute, and you see that there's this reluctant acceptance that he has with the situation. He's gonna still be that guy.
Oh,
he's
still
absolutely gonna be that guy, and I love it.
I think it's the character that they need that will help them continue on with the story.
Absolutely.
But yeah, when I saw Ro Laren, blown away. Like, we have been asking whatever happened to Ro, and when and even watching in my year of Trek, and being like, okay, she went off to the Maquis.
Yeah.
Like,
now what?
Like, what happened?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Oh, and her uniform. Yeah. I like her uniform.
Yeah.
I really like her uniform.
I dug it.
And I'm like, it's Ro.
Now
I was thinking it's oh shoot, I can't remember the Admiral something or other from Battlestar Galactica.
Yeah.
She played that amazingly as well.
Yes.
For the life of me, I can't remember the Admiral's name, but Michelle Forbes just is a wonderful actress.
Oh yeah.
And
absolutely.
I just loved her character. I just loved Ro, and I wish, for those of you who don't know, for the 4 of you that are watching or that will watch at some point in the future, they actually offered the part of not necessarily Kira Nerys, but Kira's role. They offered that to Ro as, hey, we want to bring you over to this show. And because of whatever other stuff that she wanted to do as an actor,
she turned it
down. Was like, nah, I kind of, I like the character. I don't want to take the character in that direction. And so that's where we got Nana Visitor, or Nana,
who killed it.
Pronounce it. Which
great
character, character. So even though we got a great part, like, we get Ro back.
Yep.
So happy to see Ro. And it was so funny because, Picard's like, you were part of the Maquis. Like, I know that he felt personally betrayed.
Right.
And I love the line at the very end where it's like, he's like, where Riker's like, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'm sorry that for whatever loss. And he's like, no, you don't.
Yeah.
No, you don't. You don't know how I feel, but
Yeah.
I don't think I knew how I felt either
Until now. Yeah.
until now. Yeah. And but him keeping on questioning her. It's like, you were part of the Maquis. So how did you become a Starfleet officer again?
How are you a commander? You left as lieutenant. You were a traitor. You betrayed your the Federation. You betrayed your commanding officer. You this. It was beautiful to that whole their arc. And again, one of those threads that got pulled together, their whole arc of her coming back, his anger, his resentment, his regret, the fact that they pretty much laid out like we were a thing. It wasn't just, mentor mentee. It was mentor mentee outside the bedroom. So you have all that stuff, and you see that fact that it was more, and then you have that closure and that realization. One of my notes was, holy shit, Picard was more Kirk-like than I thought.
Yeah.
Because now we've got all these women that he's loved and all this time that we were always like, was there? Did they? Didn't they? No, I don't think so. Oh shit, they did. So.
Yeah. Well, and I always thought that it was more like in the show that it was more Ro and Riker.
Yes. Yeah, because they had a thing for a little bit.
And it was one of those love hates.
Yeah.
Where you're like,
lots of angry sex. Yeah.
There you go. But so her getting back into Starfleet, it's like Chakotay did it.
Yeah.
Why not her?
Exactly.
Like Chakotay proved himself, and being on Voyager and being and that way, so he was able to prove himself. He's now captain,
right? And
or will be. I can't remember exactly where in the timeline it fits, but she had there would have been some opportunity for her to prove herself again.
Yeah.
And she explains it.
Yeah, she does. And she does a very good job of explaining it. And it also explains why she's in Starfleet Intelligence, as we find out. Mm-hmm. One of the first things when I first watched it, and I can't remember if I messaged you or if we talked about it when we were talking about the episode, seeing her blown away, and then immediately, because she has her hair tucked behind her ear like she always did, longer, cool. And I went, same thing. Oh my God, it's Ro. Oh my God, she looks great. Oh God, yes, where the fuck's her earring?
Mm-hmm.
Immediately. And the fact that Picard even, so you've betrayed yet another institution. I was like, oh, damn. Okay. I mean, maybe she's a changeling. Maybe he's not wrong, and then we find out.
Well, and there was a total feeling out of like who's who. Like they go into the bar, Picard pushes, safety off and guns up,
Oh, that was great.
Yes. One of my and this to me, brilliant editing, and I don't know if you wrote this down. When they're talking about, she says, I have 2 trusted people on the ground right now doing whatever. And then it cuts, and you have both Worf and Raffi literally on the ground.
Yeah. Yes. I wrote it. I was like, perfect.
I was like, okay,
that's a good segue.
Great edit for that play on words.
Yep.
So
and that's a huge nod to the director. I would love to see the script, because something in my head says that was not scripted that way. That it was a cut to this section and they are being held hostage,
doing whatever. Yeah.
And I think that to me, I want to give credit to the director for going there. Well, she has 2 people on the ground. Can we have them lay down and be on the ground? Like, can we do that? Yeah, let's do that. Let's see how that looks. There we go. So yeah, no, that was again, as the episodes go on, there is this continuation of quality directing, quality writing. You know, yes, there's moments and lines and whatever, but
Yeah,
it's the little stuff like
it's
that.
it's the little nitpicking.
Yes. Yep.
So having watched the last 5 episodes over the last 2 days, previously just watching one episode a couple times, one episode a couple times, one episode a couple times, and specifically with episode 5, you have the autopsy of the one changeling. I thought that they're not the changeling that they killed on Metalis,
right?
But I thought that there were 2 changelings killed before they killed the one that made itself look like LaForge. For some reason, that was just kind of in my head.
No, so
no, I know that now.
Okay.
I know that now, but I was like, but I knew that there were 2 that were killed. Right. Now, the point that I'm trying to get to is that the doctor says that that normally when you kill a changeling, it just, it goes back to its gelatinous form. This one, it actually kept the form. And I was thinking, well, why did it not keep the form the other time it was killed? But it was when they actually killed it on the La Serena. Right. It was in a gelatinous form.
State. And it exploded, which was weird.
It was in a gelatinous state, and the other one was not. Right. So in a sense, it did stick to its form that it died in.
Right. Now here's a question for you, and again, the hypothesis, because I don't have an answer.
Okay.
So when she shoots LaForge, changeling, you get that full body ripple effect.
Yes.
And then it solidifies.
Yes.
I know she's talking about, okay, it could be its evolution, it's this, that, the other thing. Is it possible? And I would assume they would have found something like this if doing the autopsy, but she looks like she's still wearing clothes, so I don't know. Could it be like a piece of tech somewhere? Because it's almost like it looked like the body tried to go back to that gelatinous state and then was like, oh, wait, no, and stayed. Or was that just a general effect to say, hey, it is a changeling, she's done. Because I don't remember the other ones when Jack shot the other ones. I don't remember them. They're obviously, it doesn't matter, different timing, but I don't remember seeing any kind of effect like that.
I think the scene was so quick that if they spent the extra money on special effects, it would just be too much.
Yeah.
But when in episode 3, when he punches the guy in the face,
right, his face
does morph a little bit. So yeah. Let's see. I said what Starfleet is compromised at the highest level.
Yep.
And that's why, and I think that also goes back to Worf saying that it's like, he says this. He said, my handler's telling us to still go, not so many words,
right? But
that being denied, that comes from above them.
Her. Yeah.
Which
that's. I ran out of time. I wanted to pause on the intelligence screen or pull up a screenshot of it somehow and then flip it on my computer. But I wanted to have all that data, all the screens they were going through to look and to read and to see.
Yeah.
Because it lists out different ships that are affected. There was different places within Starfleet. There was names that were on there. There's some articles or reports that were redacted on there. So there's data out there. I would love to be able to flip that around and look at it
and see how detailed they are.
Right. Yeah. Because again, with everything else they've done, it's not just words on a page. It's not just stuff on a screen that we don't care. There's all this stuff that's out there. So I'm really curious to see it, which now that I'm thinking about it, and I don't know why I didn't think about this before. What's to say that LaForge being at the museum was his choice? What's to say he wasn't put in that position?
That's a great theory.
So because again, when you look at the character, right? he would love to just live on a ship for the rest of his life and be the engineer or teach at Starfleet Academy or whatever. Maybe he was that guy. They're like, we can't replace him. It's too tricky with the optic eyes and all. So get him out of the picture.
Yeah.
Put him behind a desk, put him in a museum, leave him there, walk away. You're done. So I'm curious to see how they're going to play that out, because I now that I'm thinking about it, it makes more sense to me that, especially in a conspiracy like they're talking about, they have, that would be, you identify your biggest threats, the ones that can't be replaced, and you remove them.
So I think it was in the first episode before the credits run. You have the ending title, and then you have in this season of Picard.
Right.
So I was like, oh, we've seen that episode. We've seen that.
Yep.
We haven't seen that. So like the one where the Titan is kind of turning and moving and then dipping and flowing. We haven't seen that. I believe that's at the Daystrom Institute.
Yep.
We see, and this might throw off another. Another theory where the weapon is lore.
Right.
Maybe the weapon is not lore. That lore is part of the museum.
Okay.
Because
that's
you hear him. You also see him in the distance saying something, God damn it, lore. But it's LaForge.
Right.
And then that's when we get the close up of lore, and he's in he's behind the glass.
Right.
But even before that, it's like kind of in the back, he's almost like standing in a brig.
Right.
Almost. So he could just be there on display.
Yeah. God, that's dark to think that, here's Starfleet. We are above all this other stuff. And we are morally, follow our morality.
Yeah.
By the way, sentient being on display for your enjoyment. Only 3 credits.
Or he is at the Daystrom Institute.
Right.
On display.
Right. And that makes sense.
And this
we
is
have to get
LaForge.
LaForge.
LaForge has already joined the team.
Right.
There's also a scene between LaForge and his daughter, with a new hairdo, but she has that same hairdo at the end of episode 5 when they warp away.
Right.
Okay. Where he said she's what is it? He says they're not your family, and she says yes they are. You taught me that.
Yep.
So it's almost like. It's almost like that scene where they've met up with him. He comes on board and he's like, "What the hell are you doing?"
Right.
And then goes to her, "Why are you involved in this?
Right.
You need to come with me."
Right.
And there's going to be that daughter headbutting. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that there's a lot. So there's a lot of, I said it in the beginning, these moments that lead to the, that thought of spinoffs, right? And you and I talked about this after, I think it was episode 2. We're talking about, oh my God, you can totally see a spinoff featuring the Titan or featuring another ship, the new Enterprise, whatever the case may be, with Seven as the captain, and LaForge, she's the helmsman, or maybe she's now the engineer, or whatever the case would be. Like, you're seeing these relationships get built, and all of them seem to be these seeds that are being planted.
Yeah.
That I can see a spinoff show happen with these characters continuing on in these roles on weekly adventures, now under Captain Hansen or Seven, whatever she wants to go by. Although I think the interesting thing was, I think it was episode 4, when Picard's talking to Jack about Starfleet. Oh, maybe you should join something better and bigger and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
The way that he pushes back against a lot of it reminded me a lot of Chakotay and his reluctance to accept. And then when he does, he becomes a phenomenal officer, first officer, and then later captain. And so there's that, to me, there's that point of like, you could have Jack Crusher, and you have 7 of 9, and that's your captain and your first officer. And then you've got LaForge, and you've got, it's the next generation of the next generation, as we joked when we talked about before.
Yeah.
You see that. So there's a lot of really cool potential to continue on the story after Picard ends, which we've already heard Frakes and everybody else say, this is the end of Picard. This is not the end of the story.
Right.
There's more coming. We can't talk about any of it. So,
and the more and more we get of Shaw, because when after the first episode or the second episode, and we started talking about, what could we see? Like we talked about, Enterprise, what F is being FG. Yeah. So you have Enterprise G with Captain 7.
Yep.
You could bring in characters from Lieutenant Commander Rutherford is the engineer,
right?
So you've got you could totally bring in and have this show with the Enterprise with a captain that we know, and and then have whatever, and just kind of push on from there. But even though that would be really, really cool, I want to see Star Trek Titan, not with Riker, but with Shaw and Seven. And then after this, him actually, and maybe somewhere further down in the line, actually refer to her as Commander 7.
Yeah.
And so it would be basically Captain Shaw, Commander 7 as his first officer, LaForge as Ensign LaForge as the whatever, and just kind of have that as the new show.
Yeah. And that
would be great.
Oh yeah. And that was one of the things that I forgot until you said it, when she shoots the LaForge changeling.
Yes.
He says, "Oh, how did you know?" "Oh, she always refers to me as Commander 7, out of respect."
Yeah.
It's like,
and the look on
good choice.
And the look on his face is good call.
Yeah, good call.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, I hear you. I'm not going to do it, but I hear you. So, but I think that'd be, like I said, I've really, really, really fallen in love with the Shaw character. He's somebody I want to see more of, and my fear, right? So because we're kind of at that point we're talking about the future of everything. My fear is that he will self-sacrifice. He will, he'll become a legend in his own way and leave this impression upon the other legends because he chose to do this. And just like when he got hurt, he didn't turn to somebody else on the Titan to take over. He's like, you got us into this mess, and you're gonna have to get us out. Computer transfer all authorization to Riker, authorization Shaw 138 Alpha Echo.
Yeah.
Oh, fucking right on. So there's something to my fear is they're going to do that. My hope is exactly what you're saying. I would love to see a continuation, and that's exactly what you can call it, Star Trek Titan.
Yeah.
Star Trek Titan. Titan is now the flagship. They've already established that. Enterprise was the flagship. That's why we were on it, quote unquote. So here we are on the Titan. We get to watch Shaw, even if it's only for a season or two, and then he gets promoted or he retires or whatever. And then 7 is the one that he puts up to take on. And I think that would be a great way to pass that baton to her, if you will.
Mm-hmm. Or even as, maybe as if he does have that sacrifice, then it would be Captain 7 on the Titan.
Correct. So I think there's a lot of potential for it. And I'm seeing Paramount kind of watching the way that Disney handles the Star Wars universe, televised version, because we don't have any movies anymore, thank God. But every Mandalorian conversation for next week's show, but Mandalorian, as we were talking about the other day, is the foundation for all the other live action spinoffs. So you have Mandalorian goes forward, Book of Boba Fett, Mandalorian, Ahsoka, Mandalorian. Now they're talking about with Skeleton Crew with the Lost Pirates. So Picard in this timeline is the push. Discovery was the push for Trek as a whole.
Mm-hmm.
Not going to take anything away from that. I have a lot to say about it, but I won't. Different show.
Yeah.
So, but with Picard, if we're going to continue this timeline, which we should, because there's a lot that needs to be addressed, and we know at some point, do my math right, like 75 years give or take 100 years before the burn. So we're within a 2-generational thing, right? It was like 20.
I mean, we have
2508 or something like that for the burn. I gotta look that up because my brain just told me that I don't know.
Yeah, hold on.
Star Trek Discovery year of the burn. Okay, 3069. Excuse me.
It's
No, so all the crew knew initially was that around 3069, any active dilithium was rendered inert, resulting in all active warp engines going critical. Okay, so we have more than enough time to get there. So there's a lot of stories to be told. You and I have had this conversation 1,000 times.
Mm-hmm.
So many stories to be told, and I think now we're in a really good point because we have new generation TNG, for lack of better terminology, new generation TNG. Characters and actors being established. We have existing TNG timeline in Voyager, DS9, whatever. We have all these other characters, and it's a great way to spread out. We, as the fans, get to see what happens with the LaForge family, and it would not be unprecedented to have Geordi LaForge show up on the Titan to visit his daughter, or go on planet to visit his daughter, or here's Admiral Janeway to come present the captain's bars to Seven. So we have all these things that as fans we'd love to see.
Yeah.
And we're in that timeline, and that nostalgia is strong. And I think that if they were smart, they went into this with that mindset. After season 2 was done, they looked at season 3 and said, here, because the one complaint we've had about the Taco Bell incident could be addressed in a Star Trek Titan show. That happens after this. The Changeling threat has been resolved or temporarily resolved or whatever. Now we are rebuilding elements of the Federation, and we're doing so with the Borg because we still have this thing we got to go deal with. They've been setting up their perimeters. They've been setting up their shielding, whatever they needed. Now we have to go fight another bad guy.
I would even do a Star Trek Titan with the crew that we have. Like we've already established a crew.
Yep.
But make it episodic.
Yeah. Take a page out of Strange New Worlds.
Yeah, and make it episodic, and you could do a ton of stuff.
Yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's the hope. That's the goal. That's the dream, right? But where we're going to go with this, and I've talked about some of these ideas. There's obviously something going. Well, let me backtrack to one of the other things of episode 5. I love the fact that Ro, the sacrifice, her speech, that whole thing was beautiful.
Yeah.
Giving Picard her ring, and that it was Riker that was like, "Oh, you don't know why she gave it to you?
Here you go.
Ta-da!" This is an old trick that all Starfleet intelligence did. Super cool that we have all that. Her sacrifice was not in vain. We have some closure. She has some closure as an actress.
Mm-hmm.
And now where do we go? So I think that obviously there's something going on with Jack. Because of what Beverly Crusher talks about with him having these same nightmares as a kid, and not sleeping because of what he saw in his sleep. I wonder, and I like your theory, so that's why I'm kind of setting you up. I'm wondering, was there some genetic manipulation? Was he exposed to something during the Dominion War in utero as a newborn that created something, right?
Right.
Expound on your theory, because I really like your theory and how you present it. What your theory on
shoot, Jack. I can't even remember how I articulated it, but my thought is that maybe somehow he got a virus.
Mm-hmm.
Like if she got pregnant and she's going off to do her own thing, there's the Dominion War. You've got the Dominion tried different ways to get into Starfleet. We don't know how long so if she was the head of Starfleet Medical and pregnant, that would get back to somebody, you would think.
Yeah.
So she probably was not in that role for very long. And so maybe she got right into the Doctors Without Borders thing that they established, and when doctors who are there sometimes contract whatever
Right.
disease, virus, whatever. She could have been pregnant at the time that she got this disease, and it transferred in utero to Jack, or because he's tagging along with his mom, that he got it, and it was one of those viruses that you get it, but you don't know you have it until years and years later.
And they had the virus that they introduced in the Dominion War, and I wrote this down while you were talking because it just popped in my head.
Okay.
She talks about several of the planets that they went to.
Right.
And he did as well. I want to go back. I'm going to find out what those planets were. I want to, much like the beer, I want to look and see where those planets or those sectors are comparative to the Dominion War in that general time frame.
Yeah.
Because it would not be improbable, taking your concept, adding a slight twist, wouldn't be improbable for Section 31 to use him as a weapon. You're going to these planets.
Oh,
you're not Starfleet.
So yeah, I had forgotten that
Yep.
basically that he was through some type of genetic manipulation through a virus or whatever, that he is a weapon,
right?
And that's why they're trying to catch him, because he can end up destroying the whatchamacallit. I had forgotten about that part.
You're good. And he is a weapon, because when you look at it in the moment when they beam everybody down, and it wasn't. Now here's the thing: I'm not going to say he snapped. He sat there in a moment, and that's when they had that shot where that door, which was cracked about that wide, opens up. He just goes and pop, 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 and it strips the gun. Beautiful strip, by the way. Strips the gun, shoots everybody, and then walks off. And you have that amazing moment. As an actor, I give him a ton of credit, where Beverly's like, "How did you know they were all changelings?" And that look and the tear, I didn't.
Yeah, the fear in his eyes.
Right. So I think there's something going. Obviously, there's something going on, right? You're hearing the psychological, and what's to say that in order for him to be this weapon, they had to inject him with elements of changeling DNA, which is why he's having these join us, find us, come home, connect, find the branches, ... He's hearing that because there's an element of his DNA that wants that, but he was designed to be the antithesis, which would also be why he's having all of these combating thoughts, right? Consciously, he wants to be part of this family, whether he wants to admit it or not. Subconsciously, he's going to walk in and wipe out everybody on the bridge. Subconsciously, he's going to shoot
just like he did right at the beginning of episode 5.
Right. Just walk in, pop, 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 pop. Walk over. I know what you really are. Boom. Shoots her. So I think you're going to have that competing factor with him. I don't think this is a one and done character. I don't think they're going to. First of all, I don't think they're going to do that to Beverly Crusher. She even talked about it. She's lost her parents, then she lost a husband, then she lost her son Will, and then I lost everything. I'm not going to lose him too, right? So I don't think. I'll be very disappointed if they did, but I don't think they're going to kill Jack Crusher. I think he's going to make it through all this. Whether Picard does or not, different issue. Whether other characters do or not, different issue. But I don't think they're going to do that to Beverly Crusher. I don't think they're going to. Hey, sorry, you need to be a tragic heroine. We have to kill everybody. I'd struggle with that. But with that being said, it's not that all the factors that we discussed all come together and could literally be the reasoning behind his character. And I want to see that where, oh, hey, we can, that's when he goes back to the original Great Link and they extract all the negative because they helped put it in. We knew this group was there. We worked with Starfleet intelligence to create this, and they infected you. We're sorry. Let's fix it. I mean, who knows? Every episode seems to have a happy ending. Every season seems to have somewhat of a happy ending. I'm hoping this has somewhat of a happy ending. But, we'll see. I'm interested to see how that plays out. Very interested to have everybody back in the same ship. I greatly appreciated the moment that you have with Riker and Deanna Troi at the end of episode 4, I think it was, where he does reach out to her, and you're like, oh, he's doing the log. Oh shit, she responded. Oh
Yeah.
they're meant to be together.
Which again, in this season of Star Trek Picard, there's a scene between the two of them, and she's like, "You walked away from me." And I was like, ooh, okay, so when is that going to come up?
Because right now they're good.
Yeah, because she's like, oh, I'm glad, I'm glad you're safe and blah, blah, blah. So it could have been like when she finally joins the crew, and she's just like, it's like, hey, I'm glad you're safe, but slap.
Yeah. Yeah. What was that for? You walked away from me and you did this and you did this.
Yeah.
So no, I'm excited to see that, because that's, I always thought her and Worf were a very strange couple, and I never quite understood why they did that.
Yeah.
Obviously, behind the scenes reasons, other shit, got it, but it was a very odd pairing, because this is the absolute idyllic couple. Will they? Won't they? Now they've got kids. They're a torn apart, tragic couple that your heart goes out, and yes,
and
for
for them to create a character where like the kid dies, like really, I mean, that was season 1, so that was like,
and that I love the fact that the character was super brilliant and creative and created his own languages and all this stuff, but now the upside is they're able to play on that tragedy. Like you said, when I buried my son and they lowered his casket into the grave, I know it was only 6 feet, but the darkness was insurmountable.
Yeah.
And it's like, shit. I teared up. I mean, there's a lot of times Riker would talk about that. The 17 seconds and that, I would tear up. I'm like, oh my God, that, but yeah, you bring them back and it's like, hey, how have you been? Great. Here's my wife. Here's my daughter. My son's dead. Good to see you, buddy. Like it didn't make sense, but they're always going to live in difficult times.
Yeah.
I think,
and that also goes with the potential of, life on a starship.
Right. Which it does tie into, again, Beverly Crusher. This is why I didn't want you in his life. I lost my parents to, I wrote it down. I lost my parents, my husband, my son Will, all to the same space that you live in, or something. Yeah, something like that. I'll find it in a minute. But overall, what are your thoughts on first half of the season?
Oh, I really enjoy it. Like I actually so I've been watching it with of course I watch it. I get up on Thursday morning, I heat myself up a cup of tea, and I watch it. And then since Lisa was behind, I would watch it, it again with her, and then maybe again. She was so far behind that she had actually fallen asleep during episode 3. So we actually watched 3, 4, and 5 last night.
Nice.
And then I watched 1 and 2 this morning, just because I had not had time to sit down and like go through it, all of it at once. But I do want to sit back down and watch just 1 through 5.
Yeah.
As one continuous story. So, I know that there's stuff that I've missed.
Yep.
And
that's why yesterday I watched, rewatched 1, 2, and 3. Today I watched 4 and 5. It is definitely a much better flow. I found the quote, by the way. We both of us were not far off. I lost my parents, then a husband, then my son Wesley, all to the same stars that own you.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
So there's so much this season talks about, with tragedy, with grief, with pride, with patience, with misdirection. There's so many different things that they're doing. It's brilliant. My thoughts on it. I absolutely cannot wait. I know when this first started, episode 1, was it you and I talked for a couple hours, and I'm like, I'm gonna watch it because I'm gonna watch it. I'm not. I can't bite it into it yet. Like I can't. I don't know why. There's too many threads that are being thrown out there, and threads that were ignored from season 2, and I don't know. now I can't wait. Thursdays cannot get here quick enough, so I can sit down and watch it again and you know, see what kind of hijinks they get into, who comes in that episode. You know, when do we get Geordi? When do we get Lore? When do we get Deanna on ship? How does it end? When are we going to get there? And I know we are halfway. We have 5 more weeks, and that's the sad part. My hope is that by this time next month, it'll be. By the way, guys, at the end of this is when you're going to have Strange New Worlds season coming out, and we'll be making some announcements on new shows when we come up to start.
Yeah, I know that Discovery 5 is the last season. Not to say that I'm not heartbroken over that.
It really is. Where do you go from here?
I think it was, they got better or it allowed them to tell a better story when they got into the future, because they were not competing with established timeline.
Yes.
I think that they should completely scrap Section 31. I don't, they've put it off. Yeah. I know Michelle, well, she probably should command a bigger paycheck now that she's an Oscar winner.
And there's
and rightfully so.
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely.
And so I actually hope that it never happens. I don't think they need the show. So they can focus more on this timeline.
And I think Strange New Worlds is some of the best Trek I've seen in a long time. You know, I've talked about that. I agree 100% with Discovery. You know, you have the Red Lady, or not Red Lady, that's Picard. You have the Red Angel, was it? Or Red, it was Red something, I think it was Red Angel. So you have the Red Angel, right? So we have that as the season 1, 2. Then we have the Burn. Then we have reestablishing Starfleet because of this, that, and the other thing. Where do you really go? And I think that when you look at the general cost of how this stuff works now, and just like anything, and I think it fell into the from a financial standpoint, the Farscape piece, where you're paying several $1 million an episode, but you're not getting the return that you need. And unfortunately in streaming, there's no ad revenue. You know, it's how many people are subscribing, and we take this and we divide it and we check our algorithms, and okay, this is the most watched show and whatever. So you're not making a lot of money back. It's a different kind of investment.
Right.
And I think that with how CG heavy that show is, and in order to continue to tell some story that really shaped itself up to be going back to an episodic idea, which we may find out that in season 5, it was designed, granted they went back and reshot the end, but it was designed to be another full season single story arc, which is exhausting.
Yeah.
You know, where Strange New Worlds is traditional TOS, episodic, pop, 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 pop.
Yep.
Beautiful, great, aside from the pirates are. But other than that, you know,
which I when I rewatched that episode, the episode isn't that bad.
It's not. It
actually is not that bad.
It's not.
Him going, that
was
bad.
Horrible. But no, I mean, again, great casting, not a ton of CG, lots of practical effects.
Yeah.
So the dollar amount's going to be lower. And same with Picard, a lot of practical effects. Yes, we have CG, but a lot of practical effects that are going on thanks to technology. Those are LED screens they're using, stuff like that. So, you know, I think doing another Star Trek spinoff would be beneficial. And carrying on, I really hope that we do when we finally have Star Trek Day, we'll have that.
I know they've talked about doing Academy, Starfleet Academy, and actually having it focus around. I don't know if you shared an article with me or if it's just something else I saw, but Starfleet Academy with Kess or Tess, whatever her name is.
Yeah.
Tilly with Tilly.
Yeah. I think I said that to you.
That I would watch.
Yeah. And again, you're able to do something that's in a later timeline that you're not competing with existing lore or other stories are being written.
Yeah.
You're doing something completely out of the realm, and continuing it on. If Tilly gets her own show, sign me up. I don't even care what it is.
Yeah, I love
Star Trek
her character. I think it's the only character that was truly a thought out 3-dimensional character from the beginning. Like others have slowly built themselves up, but
Right.
from her from the beginning, I was like, and it's also the way that she acted it. I
absolutely.
love, yeah,
Absolutely. And I think she was, character wise, she was developed to be the eyes for the new fans. And she quickly became amazing fan favorite. I mean, there's a few people that don't love her.
I'm on a podcast right now. We're almost finished. Sure. Where are you? Okay. All right. I'll be over there. Bye. Oh, that's my daughter.
Oh, okay. I would say it didn't sound like Lisa.
She just left work and she needs to fill up her car. So I've got about 20 minutes or 25 minutes until I need to be at Costco, which is only like 5 minutes away.
5 minutes away. Yeah.
So, but I know we were coming to an end on this anyway. So.
Yeah. No, so I guess we'll kind of wrap it up, put a bow on it. Lots of breadcrumbs, lots of little Easter eggs. I still firmly stand by the Trojan horse that is the musical pieces that they put in, and how there's a lot of foreshadowing and callbacks to earlier episodes foreshadowing.
Yes.
I think that they've done a great job when it comes to directing, acting, writing, and at this point, I'm all in. I am like top to bottom, no question, no hesitation. And I think that this is where Discovery ends. And you had, which was weird, you had 80% of these people coming out, and I can't remember who it was Den of Geek or who it was I read that was like, the response to Discovery's cancellation was not expected. It was extremely positive. Which, I mean, again, it's not that it's bad. It's just, there was, and again, another show, another day, but there was elements, it didn't flesh out right. But you have to give it credit because it, much like Mandalorian, opened the door again for all this other Trek. And so now we have Strange New Worlds in the TOS era with Pike, and we get to see his adventures. Now we have Picard, and we're able to close the door on that nostalgia, which will hopefully open the door for more stories in this universe that don't have to have Picard and Riker and Deanna Troi and Beverly Crusher, and we don't need it. We can carry on. And if it's not with Seven as a captain, maybe it's Shaw that's the captain. She goes back off to somewhere else and captains some California class ship. You know, that's where they send all the good captains. She goes to, whatever, and it's Shaw and a new first officer. I would actually watch that because he's an entertaining actor. He's an entertaining character. And again, it's the flagship. 5 years, 36 missions. Hey, he might be coming to an end of his tenure on the Titan. It wouldn't be surprising to see him shifted off and her move up or somebody else move in. So they have a great opportunity for a lot of things. And, a lot of it is due to this season versus season 1 and season 2. Season 2 set up a potential storyline for the first season of another show. But now we're getting all the characters that would potentially be in it and the closure from TNG. That's my soapbox response to where we're at.
Yeah, no, I'm kind of there with you. So, all right. Well, this has been fun. We are at 3 hours and 30 minutes.
So don't forget, next week, I think, next week we're going to try and do this for Mandalorian.
Yeah.
So
yeah, probably same day, Sunday at noon. I like that.
Yep.
And then apparently the upcoming, since we brought up Mandalorian, the upcoming episode is probably the shortest episode that they've ever aired as compared to the longest. But we can talk about that next week. So
we'll see how that pans out. But well, thank you guys for watching. As to be that guy, if you're watching on YouTube, I don't know if anybody is, but if you are, hit that like, subscribe button so you can see that guy on Fridays with Tea with me, and then me every once in a while, but you'll see me in the chats. It's mirrored. So my right, I flip my camera, so I'm pointing at you, you're pointing at me.
Actually, so for me, you're pointing this way. Yeah.
So however you're watching it, subscribe to that guy.
There you go.
Who's got 2 thumbs and likes Star Trek? This guy. But hit like, subscribe. Make sure you check out Tea with Me, because we aside from finding out what's going on with Mish's life, we do talk Star Trek, nerdy news. And if you're into heavy metal and independent rock and music, don't forget mtrsradio.com. You can hear me on Fridays at 8 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Central, and I always do a nerdy news spot throughout the night, just giving you some highlights on that week's episode without spoilers.
Yeah, there you go. So thank you for tuning in. Rob, thank you for being on here with me.
Of course, my
friend.
friend.
Good chatting Star Trek and sci-fi.
Absolutely.
And until next week, same time, same channel for Mandalorian. Until then,